Alrighty, man. So we're doing this.
We're doing it.
Dude.
It's a pleasure.
Literally, we've been fucking around with this for the past 10 minutes. Dave is so large. I just, like, the camera setup here is it's for normal-sized humans. Listen, here's the deal. You have a lot of people that are obsessed with you. You have a lot of people who really follow what you do on a day-to-day basis. And you show pictures of it, you share it, but, like, I got to know you when this was your functional fitness phase of your fitness experience.
You were a big part of that phase.
And I appreciate it. And I'm super obviously excited that, like, down the rabbit trail, we were able to maintain our friendship and do all that. But, like, watching you come in, I remember, because I see 23 to 35-year-olds all day, every day. You're instantly able to tell when you've been doing this as long as I have, who is athletic naturally, who is just, like, meathead strong, who has never seen a fitness element in their life. And you were always, even then, which your body profile then was obviously way smaller than what it is now, you were still probably the strongest kid in the fucking gym. I remember there was a competition, like a little weekend throwdown, we were doing some CrossFit thing. And it was like max effort thrusters at like 205 or some weight that to the average person would be a difficult weight. And I just remember, like, watching you, like, holy fucking shit, this kid is so strong.
Yeah. To a detriment sometimes, because I would sacrifice form and just use brute strength.
Sure. And obviously it makes, if you're bigger and stronger, it makes your pull-ups, gymnastics, all that stuff. Yeah. Your handstand push-ups were going to be a little bit more difficult if you're that strong.
For sure.
I'm curious, for you, once you tapped into it and you started working out, did strength come to you naturally? Were you always more of a but you had to tap into it to get there?
Yeah, definitely. So when I survey the landscape of, like, athletes out there, I relate to Sam Dancing. I mean, just
dancer.
Dancer.
Yeah. He's a girl dad. Is he a girl dad?
I think so.
Maybe I always see his fingernails are painted, so I always assume he's a girl dad. When I see dudes with painted fingernails, I'm like, girl dad.
I've been there. But no, dude, even in, like, high school and everything, I was always just stronger. And, I would always be like, oh, it's because I'm working harder. But really, I'm just in there doing what everyone else is doing, and I'm just stronger.
Sure.
So I think there is certainly a genetic component to strength. And, there are people out there who are just freaks, and they don't have any more muscle mass than any other person or what have you. Like Larry Wheels comes to mind. Now he's like a YouTube star. But, I mean, I don't know if it's biomechanics or tendons or, like, there's just it all comes together to create just a stronger person naturally. So I was always more inclined to do strength stuff. Like, I had the power clean record in my high school, and that's just no technique involved at that point in your life.
Just I have a really strong deadlift, and I was able to jump a little bit with the bar.
Exactly. Yeah. I don't even think I had a front rack position. It was just like
straight up. Yeah,
exactly, dude.
Vertical forearms.
But yeah, so I've always been interested in strength, like fascinated by it. And growing up as a kid, it was always, I read Arnold's Encyclopedia of Bodybuilding, and I enjoyed reading about, like, Louis Cyr and all these, like, old-time strong men and stuff. And so I was obsessed with, like, strong men. And I think part of that was growing up the way I did, and so it's just always been kind of who I am.
It was interesting because I remember you came into the gym, and, like many people in any like, fitness, I believe, is cyclical. Like, it goes in cycles for people. And maybe some people cycle into fitness and they cycle out. Some people cycle into one kind of fitness and then cycle into a different kind and cycle into, that kind of scenario. And for you, because you were at the gym for a while and then you weren't, and you were gone for a period of time. And I remember we met in this exact same office. We were sitting opposite, though. I think we were just sitting here talking. This was in the middle, the height of the stress of your restaurateur, restaurantpreneur. What do you call someone who owns restaurants and bars?
Restaurateur,
restaurantpreneur, whatever.
Sounds a little too bougie.
Yeah, it does sound. It sounds a little slightly more bougie for you. And I remember you're still the only person to this day. I gave you a key to the building. I said, bro, work out. Come in here when I'm not even here. Take this key and you're allowed. Come in here at any time. Flip on the lights at 2 a.m. I don't care. Because I remember thinking, like, if this fucking dude stops exercising, like, he's just such a genetically gifted human. Yeah. And if he stops doing it, number one, you're probably going to become a huge dick. You're probably just going to become a prick. Number two, you'll never get fat. Like, you'll never, like, your genetics just work on your side on that. But I was like, it'd just be such a waste. I remember giving you that key, and you don't think you ever came in here one time. I don't think you ever came in at 2 a.m. I think in my head I romanticized that. I'm like, man, I bet you Dave's inside my gym right now at 2 a.m. just lifting weights.
I romanticize it in my head. But you know what? At 2 a.m. after dealing with bullshit at a bar all day.
It's a tough industry, man.
Yeah.
It's a tough industry. Yeah. But to stay on the fitness thing, you know, that you disappeared from fitness personally for yourself during that period of your time. What was the thing that brought you in? Because you obviously, when you dove back in, you went all in.
Yeah. Honestly, man, seeking what truly made me happy. You know, I got to the point in my life where I was miserable, burning the candle at both ends. I mean, a business owner, you know the deal. It's like I got to where I owned 3 bar locations in 2 different states with close to 100 employees. I was maintaining a corporate job at the same time for a good part of that. So it's no exaggeration when I say I worked 20 hours a day. And I got to the point where, so I was obsessed with, on paper, being a millionaire before I was 30. That was my obsession.
Why?
Arbitrary. I don't know. I thought that was just, it seemed like a good goal to have, and I grew up dirt poor, abused, all that stuff. We can go into all that if you want. But like coming from that background, the thought, just the allure of being able to say you're a millionaire, even on paper, which, as you know, is very different than having a million bucks in the bank.
Correct.
So I was obsessed with that. And I got there, like just before my 30th birthday, on paper, business assets, personal assets, everything, which again is very different than, it's not like I had a Lambo. And at that point, I remember I had a child. She was a small infant at that point. My wife was on vacation to the beach to see family. I couldn't go because of the business. And I seriously considered, while they were gone, putting a gun in my mouth and just ending it all because I was that fucking miserable. And I said, okay, hold on a second. You're imposing a lot of this on yourself, right? You are making yourself be miserable. So how are you not miserable? What do you love? And then his fitness came right back. And so I started making myself find the time to work out. Serendipitously, around that time, a private equity group came along and offered to buy the business. And that's what we started talking again a little bit more. But yeah, man, it was honestly having a conversation with myself about like what makes me happy. And it's like, no shit, this is what I've been doing my whole life that makes me happy, and I just stopped it. So fitness for me, or training, or whatever you want to call it, it's stress relief. It's meditation. It's getting in there and like, no matter what happened during the day, I'm taking it all out, on the weights, and, it helped me as a kid, a teenager, all that stuff. So that's really what it was, man. It was that self-realization of, holy shit, I've let myself get down this road so far that I'm actually thinking I have no way out. But wait a second, I have a way out. You know? So that's what it was. So,
but you went from the previous iteration of fitness for you was
functional,
functional fitness for time.
Yep.
Right. Like I'm gonna do this CrossFit thing, and again, it was also at
I thought I was the next Rich Froning.
Yeah, bro. It's also at the peak of its popularity. Right. Everyone's always like, was CrossFit South End a great business? And I'll be like, it was, but I had the best IP in the world. I had CrossFit and the name South End, which if you live in Charlotte is the most the hottest district and borough in Charlotte. So
it's like you had that wave perfectly with the CrossFit craze, and I draw a lot of parallels to, like, I had that craft beer wave as well when I opened my bars. So. And was in South End. And,
it was timing's everything.
Yeah, it truly is.
But you went from functional fitness, and then when you refound and you researched it, I remember one of the first. I don't know, it had been one of the first times you turned that camera on and you were talking about working out, and you were doing like what you do now, and it was like Dave is. It looked powerlifting-ish at that point, and then it turned like a little bodybuilding-ish. Talk to me, like, why was that your jump to? Was after that, now I've seen a lot of CrossFitters, like the rise of I truly believe bodybuilding is coming back in full go. Yeah. I think it's going to come back in a slightly different realm. I'm not saying the sport of bodybuilding. I'm talking from the training style. I think bodybuilding was just the only thing everybody did. Go to the gym, machines, cardio at the end. That's it. Vanity lifts. And then functional fitness and CrossFit showed up. And then you see guys like the Marcus Phillies of the world, and Dave Lipson and Thunder Bro, and like these guys that have turned it slightly more functional to where this large functional fitness population and go, oh, maybe that is the fastest way to quicker pull-ups, better pull-ups, or maybe this is the better way to bigger legs or whatever it may be. Why was what you do now, bodybuilding, more powerlifting style, why was that your go-to after your hiatus?
Yeah, great question. And for me, when I did CrossFit, I was miserable anytime there was something gymnasty or cardio or anything. And I made myself do it, obviously, because I needed to do it. But again, this period of my life was about what makes me happy, all right? What makes me happy is lifting fucking weights. Like, I just love lifting weights. As heavy as possible, that's what I love. So I said, I'm just going to do exactly because remember, man, I'm on the precipice of, like, gun in the mouth, pull a trigger. So what the fuck makes me happy, Powerlifting, bodybuilding, going in
the
there.
Clink of iron on the bar.
All of that stuff. Like, that's what I love it so much. Like, I feel like I'm getting a chubby right now just talking about it, dude. And it's like, I wasn't going to impose any restrictions on my hedonism, right? To, like, this is what I want to fucking do right now. And so that's what I love. I love getting a pump. I love lifting heavy weights. I love looking the way I look in the mirror. And, like, it's okay to say that. And that's been a big part of my messaging too, is like, dude, if you are at heart a fucking meathead and you like to lift weights and you want to look a certain way, do that and be proud of it. And don't let motherfuckers fit shame you for having muscles or having abs, or, like, it's okay, especially in an age when we're glorifying fucking obesity on the front of magazines, So anyway, I almost went down that.
So it's interesting too, because with the research, so I feel like functional fitness took a lot of people to the edge of the spectrum where it was like, don't worry about how you look.
Yeah.
How many butterfly pull-ups can you do?
Yeah.
How good is your Fran time? And there were definitely scenarios where certain human beings could correlate scientifically my performance in these functional fitness-based workouts and the way I look aesthetically match. And we generally see those individuals. They were at the highest echelon of the CrossFit Games, or even OCR, or American Ninja Warrior, right? Like,
but then you have your Ben Smiths who could fucking dog everybody in the gym, but he looks like a normal guy.
Correct. Yeah, it doesn't have the
correlation,
the look
there.
Good naked part type scenario. And that's where I truly believe right now with fitness is there's a huge swing. And a lot of what we've done in here with everything with tempo, like we've literally taken tempo from something that gets sprinkled into strength and conditioning programs, and everything at Urban Movement, when I say everything, I mean everything is a tempo-based lift. And it allows you to superset. It just allows you to do more than what fitness for time would typically allow you to do.
You guys have basically made the tempo being part of the lexicon as normal as sets and reps.
Sure.
Like sets, reps, tempo.
Yeah.
Which I think is really cool, and a lot of people don't focus on that at all.
It's so cool. Like, so, and I'll be at the front desk, I'll be folding towels and just listen to clients coming in and out, and exiting client will be like, whatever, and entering client will be like, how was it today? And they're like, 25-second squats, dude. And but that's, you don't hear that anywhere. So, like, that's when I was like I'm sitting there folding towels. I'm like, yes. Like, I'm like, rubbing my whiskers together. Like, perfect. That's exactly what I wanted. For you, when you got into and you went into this realm, you went deep into it, and very quickly you were able to blend. I remember you being on site at one of your rental properties. You were, obviously still very inspired. I mean, I get my assumption, and I feel like I know this for truth, is you read Rich Dad Poor Dad, right? And the benefit of investing money into dirt and hard assets and wealth.
For everyone listening, learn the difference between assets and liabilities, and read Rich Dad Poor Dad, and change your fucking life.
Yeah. So I remember you were deep into that. You had a bunch of rental properties. I remember coming, I believe it was to Carter. It was one of the baby shower. It was the baby shower, and you, me, and Jay. And we were sitting there. We were sitting there shooting the shit on something. You were talking about something about a rental property, and I remember watching you talk about it. I was like, he's gone from just, I read the book and I'm regurgitating what I fucking heard, and like you actually, like, I feel like at that point I fully comprehended. I'm like, he's actually in it. He understands that this, you can't have 2 rental properties. You need to have 23 probably. You need to have, it's a volume-based game kind of scenario. But at that point too, you've got the rental properties. You're going into this. You even started. You had the one kid. I forget his name. I always remember just big white videographer kid. You had
Greg.
Greg. Yeah.
Greg.
And you guys started shooting like vlogs and shit inside of the Eileen's Fitness Factory here in Charlotte. If anyone's not familiar, the Fitness Factory is like imagine if there was a museum of really cool fitness equipment, like shit that you would never see at any Globo gym. I could take an entire tour coast to coast and not find a mask over the head, neck strength. Like I couldn't find some of this shit.
It's amazing what she has.
And you started filming there, and I started watching those videos, and I was watching like Dave is now developing this content arm of what he's doing. Talking about that transition, you find fitness, you get into bodybuilding / powerlifting, and then when is it like hit the record button?
Yeah, great question, man. Honestly, in a sentence, reading Gary Vee,
Is that your big motivator?
For sure. For personal branding, for actually just saying fuck it and recording. It was Gary Vee and just his messaging at the time, because this was a few years back now. But yeah, I mean, I always wanted to do something in the fitness space to make a living, and it was one of those things where for the longest time, and I've said this on podcasts before, like I didn't think it was, and this sounds fucking awful, I say it now, I didn't think it was like noble enough pursuit as a career, right? Like you got to be a fucking doctor or this or that or whatever, work in corporate America. It's like, no, actually today you can start a YouTube channel and put out fitness content and help probably more people and change more lives and do it that way. So that's when I started the Hurt Vlog with Greg, where we were recording just kind of like shenanigans in the gym with a little bit of informational content. And I started really pushing my Instagram a lot more and putting out content there. I got linked up with Phorm and started working with them and learning how to actually coach people and started taking that seriously. And the goal was to coach people online and in person on nutrition, primarily nutrition, but some training, and then continue to build content to try and get my messaging out and sort of grow them concurrently. And it really all started with reading Crushing It or Crush It. I always get them mixed up, but the first one and then the second one by Gary Vee. And it's like, yeah, it fucking makes sense. Why not? Why don't I try to do that? Because at that point, again, I went down the whole fucking rabbit hole of chasing dollar bills, man, and being fucking miserable with my life. And I just wanted to get as far away from that as possible. And I'm like, I don't care if I make negative dollars for the next several years. Like, I'm going to do this and I'm going to do what makes me happy. And what you find, and I know you've found this personally, is when you start to do that and speak from a place of passion and really dive into what you love, like you're so much better at it than any other fucking bullshit chasing a paycheck. Like, I'm a way better, I don't even know what you would call it these days. What I do now, I'm way better at it than owning bars,
Yeah.
So I'm happier.
It's interesting too with that pursuit, when you figure out, all right, I enjoy this thing. And generally the things were, and I don't even like saying passionate, because I truly don't believe just because you're passionate about something, you should pursue it as a business, right?
Sure. There's plenty that I'm passionate about that are like, I'm not doing porn, right?
Yeah. I love fucking, but I'm not going into porn. Yeah.
Thanks, Dad, for not giving me
I'm like, I love whiskey, but I'm not gonna open a distillery. Would I invest? Maybe. Yeah. Right? That's a different story. But there's a lot of guys, there's
That's a good point.
People that if you open a coffee shop because you really like coffee and then it eats shit on you, you probably were best being a barista or a consumer.
Yeah.
You probably weren't best being the owner of said coffee shop. And
or starting like a coffee blog where you review
and like start slow
sure.
and ease into it. So for you, fitness always there, and people don't realize you went to UC Berkeley. You are you're extremely intelligent to an umph degree on other sides, but I want to really focus on biology and chemical biology, what I would consider now, we'll get into later, anabolic chemistry.
Yeah.
Okay? You are extremely educated. I've listened to several episodes of your Man Card podcast. And
now it's the Mind of Man.
Correct.
Thank you. Trademark issues.
Yes, the Mind of Man. But even like listening to you and Tut, your co-host on that at the time, and the other girl that was on it, I was just like, and this is no shame to them or offense whatsoever, when you would speak on these topics, I mean, even them self-admittedly in the interviews, just like, holy fuck, what did he just say?
Yeah.
And what I love is the contrast that you have. Like, I look at you, and I'm like, okay, I know your intelligence. Another human being looks at you and goes, meathead. Like there's not a lot there up in the brain part. And that's I think the best part. And I think the thing for you content wise that will always you can always skyrocket across other dudes is that the intelligence, in which the Mind of Man I think is a really a good name for a podcast for you. Let me ask you this: as you were switching into fitness, and fitness became content, and then content became identity, was there ever a part where you felt, all right, I've created an identity. It's not completely on fire. It's not roaring, but it's smoking. There's definitely something here. Did you ever feel you had to go all in and commit to it? Like to the point, like I feel, like with WTF, if I give a response in public sometimes, and I'm not motherfucker, cunt this, motherfuck that, whatever.
Right.
I feel like I got to sometimes play, like there were times where I felt trapped. I was like, I got to play to that caricature I created. And I never wanted to be in that. So I purposely, like, once I had that, I'm like, okay. And we look at you and I look at your beard and your mohawk and you look like a built fucking diesel truck. Did you ever feel a moment where you're like, okay, this has gotten big and now I'm known for a thing. Now I have to fulfill a caricature.
Yeah, that's a great question. And it's something that I think about often because of the way I look and the way, everything about me that's maybe not. Quote,
like you've sleeved up recently. I mean, like this is all new.
Yeah. Well, this has all been an evolution that I had in mind for years. So, we can talk about that too, but a lot of it stems from like stuff with my dad and like there's a whole thing behind all of this, but a lot of that came with finally stepping away permanently from corporate America and being able to do those things.
Yeah.
But anyway,
because there's no I mean, like not that there's no going back, but like this is kind of like a fuck you to wearing sleeves.
Sure. Yeah, absolutely. And same with the mohawk and everything else. Like, but I'm so happy now, man. Like I'm so fucking happy and I love who I am. And to answer your question though, yes and no, because I've always tried to be. I've never created a caricature of my persona. I've always been just me. So the way I'm talking to you now is the way I talk on my IG lives and everything else. And like, I don't try to make my persona fit my look, because I think that's the most exciting thing about what I'm doing is saying like, you can look like this and also be articulate, like, so I'm never trying to be like, what's the guy's name that does like the fuck? He's hilarious. I love his stuff, but he's like, Robert Frank.
Okay.
He's like he is a caricature of a meathead. So he's always like crazy. It's like, I've never tried to be that. And I'll never try to be that, because my message to young men is like, you can be a quote unquote meathead and have tattoos and a beard and a mohawk and whatever the fuck else you want to do. But you can also be a loving father. You can be smart. You can be all these different things that are sort of the polar opposite in the eyes of a lot of folks, right? So I don't worry about that too much, because I'm just me, you know, and I never try to be, I curse a lot, and that's just naturally what I do. I don't try to censor that. I don't try to curse more, or I just am who I am. And I think if you start from square one that way, which I was able to do because this is all sort of new-ish, then you don't have to worry too much about trying to be, a persona. And, Andy Frisella, who I look up to a lot, the CEO of Phorm, he talks about that too. Like, he knows a lot of CEOs who have to essentially be careful about going out and having drinks with the guys, or doing, so they might be seen in a different light or conducting themselves in a different way. And he's like, I've just been transparent about the fact that I drink beers and do this and do that, like, from the beginning. So nobody's surprised when they see me doing it. So I don't worry too much about it.
There's marketing and branding is probably my favorite topic in all of business. And there's definitely something to be said about people and brands that can be contrast. Mm-hmm. Like, you noticed every fucking house and even this building, every commercial building's got a white and black kind of fucking tone, right? It's aesthetically pleasing. And when I think of guys, even like going back to, I know you're a fan of Gary Vee stuff, middle-aged, probably 40-some-year-old white dude, huge hip-hop, black culture, urban style to him. And those two contrasting things are extremely magnetic, right? So, for you specifically, like, I look at, like, from a marketing standpoint, if I was a firm and I wanted to take Dave Hurt from here to here, I'd be like, he's got all the pieces to it. He's got, again, he's gonna stop the thumb scroll. not just because, and he's only stopped the thumb scroll because what he looks like and how he conveys himself or how he talks creates a whatever. Because I could, if let's say I've got my IG, right, and I'm busy and I'm public and I can't listen to the audio, probably scroll right past you because there's 100,000 other dudes, jacked, beards, tats, mohawks. But the second you open your mouth, which is why, I'm super excited about your podcast. I think that's truly going to be an unlock for you. That's what creates this wave over you. We're like, holy shit. That's like, I'm waiting for the jacked, tattooed, mohawk, huge preacher. Like that guy would get some fucking views.
That juxtaposition of two different worlds. And like, for me, it's truly just like doing what I love. Like I fucking love science. I can nerd out on the most esoteric topics and I think to an extent, this is why Joe Rogan is successful, right? Like tattooed guy, does jujitsu, hunts, does all these things, but he will get a neuroscientist on it and really dive into like, the nuances of the brain and stuff. And it's like, I love that kind of stuff. And I had Sean Whalen on my podcast, and we were talking about, when he gets together with the guys like around the campfire drinking beers and stuff, guys that look like me, like they're talking about like life on other planets. And, like that's the shit that I really get down with is like there's no box that you got to be in, man.
Sure.
Not at all. And yeah, I think it does help with my following or my branding or whatever. And that's cool. But it's also just who I am. And I think if a lot of people would just truly talk to themselves about who they are, they'd be a lot happier and more successful because they will find a tribe that resonates with them. I mean, there's fucking 9 billion people on the earth, right? Like, it's crazy. Like you had, who was your first guest on Shoot the Shit?
Sydney Cummings.
Sydney Cummings. When you guys started, you were saying she's the most famous person you'd had on the show.
Yeah.
I had never heard of her.
I know.
And so that just shows you how big this fucking world is, man. Like I had Seth Feroce on my podcast, 500,000 followers, millions on YouTube, fucking super popular. Tons of people, I would say, like, I just had Seth Feroce on. Like I'm saying it like they're like, who's that?
Yeah.
It's like there's so much room for growth and finding people that resonate with you. Just be what the fuck you want, man, and the people are out there.
It's so funny. Like every niche has their Brad Pitt, their celebrity kind of thing to it. Like there's a woman who is into air frying, and she'll like, if I met her on the street, she'll be like, oh my God, have you listened to Daisy McDale's YouTube channel? I'm like, who the fuck's Daisy McDale? She's like, she is the fucking the Trump, the Brad Pitt, the whatever caricature, whatever person you want of air frying, of frying. Yeah. Like, and every niche fucking has that. And that's where, niching in is in my opinion, is where all the money exists. I call it the white space, right? Like that's what I try to do here with Urban. It's what I try to do with WTF is find the two big spots. And then what's in the middle? And in the middle, you could cut it a bunch of different ways, but find one of the things in the middle, and that's the white space. That's the opportunity. In design, we call the white space the actual clear space. If I put a logo here and a tagline here, the white space is everything in between. That's the area to exploit. And whenever, and you've obviously had to change the name because of trademark issues and stuff like that. But like this concept of Mind to Man in your podcast, I love it. I think it truly, but like when I think of Dave Hurt's success, it would be like if he could get a bunch of guys, because a lot of guys are initially going to stop and follow you because they believe you're going to lead them to the information that will help them look like you. And that's you got to get that. That's the first bit.
I get it every day.
Just like I get some gym owners like, I want to own my own building. I want to license gyms. I want to have a successful gym. And that's like maybe the thing on my resume. Like, again, I keep using your Gary Vee stuff, but his opening line, I took my parents' liquor store company from 3 to 60 whatever million, right? That's his opening catch you. This is why I'm significant line. But beyond that, if you could get men to go from this and be like if you had a Dave Hurt word of the week, I want you to have a Dave Hurt word of the week, high-end fucking word. Dig into your UC Berkeley fucking, I want you a high-end fucking word. Like, I want you fuckers to use this 10 times this week and upgrade your goddamn vocabularies and be fucking more educated. Like, the science, and we'll get into some of that here, but the science that behind what creatine monohydrate actually does versus what does this steroid do versus protein synthesis and optimal anabolic. You have a library, like an Urban Dictionary, a Dave Dictionary of fucking terms then no one else is using. But if you got all these guys that are into being a meathead, that's their identity, to be using smart fucking words, and their goal is to go out there, instead of worrying about like if your flex looks good as you talk to that chick, drop the Dave Hurt word of the fucking week on them. Like, that would be like a movement I could see for your brand.
I honestly, I can't tell you how many DMs, messages, etc. I get from females thanking me for talking about that stuff. For like, they're like, thank you so much for saying that it's okay for a meathead to like be vulnerable and to care.
Yeah.
And to actually,
I made my boyfriend listen to your podcast because he was
Dude,
too much of a dick.
I've heard that so many fucking times
Yeah.
already about like, I got my husband to listen to it. I got my father to listen to it, like all this stuff. And it's like, it's so freeing too when you like, because like, look, most dudes who look like me or some iteration of me, they got some shit going on, right? Like you got some shit going on. Maybe you had a shitty childhood. Maybe I don't know, like you're self-conscious about something. Like, let's be honest, right? Like a lot of dudes who are in the gym fucking day in and day out trying to get as huge as possible. Look, some just absolutely love it, like for sure. But there's some that got some shit going on, and they want to be able to be as open as I am. And they're messaging me like, dude, how do you do it? I'm like, you just fucking do it, bro. Like, what do you mean? How do I do it? Like, I just talk about what's on my mind. And like, who's, I don't give a fuck what people think. Like, I don't know. Like, I have the people in my circle that I care about in real life. And then if I put all this shit out here and like people out in social media land are, like not cool with it, that's fine. They're not, that's totally cool. You've got to be accepting of that, because you're never going to have 100% of people resonate with you, right? Like, again, it goes back to like, you'll find your tribe. Just keep putting it out there and being true to yourself. And like, I've had guys reach out to me like, dude, like meathead guys, like, yeah, I'm really into Star Trek, but I don't want to ever talk about it, and it's just like, bro, talk about it. That's going to get you pussy. Like, come on. Like, I don't know if I can say that, but like,
I think on this podcast should be okay.
Okay, cool. But that's what it is, man. It's like, it's so hilarious because we're feigning interest in these topics that actually make us more appealing to society and to others, because we think that we're supposed to be a certain way.
And we all have weird things about us. We all have things that we suppress.
That's the good shit.
You said it earlier. I believe everybody has it. I believe everybody who ends up manifesting, let me just corner it, manifesting even a business definitely has it, or an identity out, bigger than themselves. Everyone has a monster. Everyone's got their demons, their monsters, their things that, like you said, you're combating your shitty relationship or non-existent relationship with your dad. A girl hurt you. Like that joke. I always joke around like, Isaac will be yelling at me about something, and we disagree on something, and she's just going off. I know, and I'll be like, "Who hurt you?" Yeah. Like, I'll just joke around, but like, someone's done something to all of us, in which has left scars, and now we try to compensate that. What? And I I know I've heard the story of your dad, and I've seen all this stuff, but like in your upbringing, would you say that's your biggest demon, your biggest monster is your childhood and your upbringing, or is there like what's the most current motivating monster for you?
Yeah, it probably is that. My motivator for the longest time has been, a lot of people have parents and they want to be like their parents, and that motivates them to. I have always tried to be as far possibly away from who my parents were, like just flat out in every area of life, because that's how they were, like, and it probably still is the biggest motivator to me, especially now that I'm a father, because now I look at how my dad was as a father and how my mom was as a mother, and like, God damn, I don't want to be that, and so it's like every day I wake up wanting to be the best fucking dad I can, wanting to, and by the way, that doesn't just mean your interactions with your child. It means who you are in society, the example you're setting, the content I'm putting out, I know she's going to see one day, right? So like, that's a big driver for me now. Is like, now that I am a dad, not being what they were, and it's tough, because that to an extent, having shitty parents made you as strong as you are, right? Like, I know that they made me who I am, and sometimes I almost want to thank them for being shitty, right? but then it's like I don't want to be that to my daughter, but I also want her to grow into a strong person. So it's a weird dance that you have to do of like how do I artificially impose some obstacles into her life, right, while not being a piece of shit like my parents were.
It's interesting, man. So my dad, big drug thing, and then when that wasn't kicking it for him anymore, and he weaned off, whatever, couldn't take it, did what you almost did, and just fucking put cherry pie all over the wall. And it's one of the it's interesting because there's a couple things now I'll never do. I've done homemade basement acid in college. Buddy tells me he made this this acid in his mom's basement. You want to try it out? Yeah, whatever. Let's do it. Weed, drink, party, all the fun stuff. I will never have and never done coke. My mom smoked, and when I remember as a kid, I was like 5 years old. I would sneak into my mom's purse.
Pot or
no cigarettes?
Okay.
And I'd rip up the cigarettes because I was old enough to know that cigarettes were bad for you. And I'd rip them up and throw them away, and she would lose her collective mind. I'd get my shit beat because cigarettes were not cheap. They're still not cheap. So I've never smoked a cigarette. Like there are little things our parents do that like they put these little pinpoints in our brain like that pissed me off so much as a kid or upset me so much as a kid or caused a trauma, I'm going to, out of spite, I'm never going to touch that because I associate that. And I know you probably have a lot of those demons too. When you sit now, as both of us, as girl dads, there's stuff that I still do now because of probably my own scars and my own monsters. And then there's stuff I do now or I try. I'm going to put a huge capital bold try 100%. To not fuck up in front of my own kid. And our daughters are ridiculously close in age. Yeah. Francie turns 4 end of May.
Yeah, Carter's 4 Sunday.
Sunday? Oh, no shit.
Beginning of April.
Very cool. All right. So with that being said, what shit do you find yourself doing now that changes? Whether it's, because again, you was social. There's definitely like you got to have a conversation with mom, like what's okay to put on social, what's not okay. Yeah. Like, talk to me about that part.
Yeah. So first off, mom doesn't go in my social at all because of some of the potential dangers.
Sure.
Of some of the more controversial topics that I'm open about. Yeah, I mean, dude, losing my temper is a big one. Losing my temper in front of her is something that, whether I'm driving and someone cuts me off, you've got those hairline triggers that just like, and I talked to Seth Feroci about this too. He's like, because it's gonna happen, right? Like dad's listening, it's gonna fucking happen. You are going to exhibit the shittiest aspect of your personality in front of your child. The question then is like, what do you do after that, right? You sit them down, say, look, daddy's not perfect. This is what happened. Do as I say, not as I do. And that's what I do. So like, look, daddy shouldn't have yelled when that fucking car cut him off. Don't ever use that word, he said. I think being as transparent as possible with them and having those, especially now when they're 4, they can start to understand. That's how I deal with it, man, because it happens all the fucking time. And it drives me crazy because I see parts of me where I'm like, that's my dad, and that's the whole nature versus nurture thing, right? Like no matter how hard I try to get away from it, it's in my fucking DNA. Like I have his laugh, I have his eyes, and it's like always haunting me, right? But just being honest with yourself about that and being honest with your kids about that, I think is the best way. And just a quick story on, you were talking about like your thing with the cigarettes and everything. So you asked about my tattoos earlier. My dad was sleeved out. He was covered in tattoos. I vowed to never get one until he died. I waited until after he passed away, and that's when I started getting all the tattoos I had wanted for a long time.
Yeah. Who did your art?
Furious George Leffler here in Charlotte, North Carolina.
Furious George?
Furious George.
That's such a good fucking name.
Yeah, dude. Play on Curious
What's the
George.
name? Is he a shop here, Charlotte?
He's at Black Cloud in Pineville.
Okay.
Yeah, shout out to him.
Yeah.
He's fucking talented. I can't wait to go see him again. But yeah, so I always wanted him. But it was literally like, dad's got him, I'm not doing it. Yeah. I'm not giving him that fucking satisfaction of seeing his son with tattoos.
Sure.
Like, how fucked is that?
It is real. These are things that are going to plague your thoughts for a period of time. And I think about it now, even like, with Gus, there's times where, like, just like you said, I fuck up from being a perfect parent, which, by the way, it doesn't exist. And,
nope.
And you deviate from it, and I think as long as you identify it and have the conversation. But 4 years old, like, they're on the back half of where their ability to communicate and what's rationally going on in their brain have finally just shook hands.
Yep.
There's like, I can finally say
That's a
what
perfect way to put it.
Yeah, what my brain is actually thinking. Because I remember when she was 2 and 1, I could see this anger in her face when she couldn't convey what she wanted. And I'd be like, well, I'd be really frustrated too if I had a thing in my head and like nothing came out. It's a really unique age, and girl dads are unique. So I'm like, I've talked about this. So I got my vasectomy, right? I'm a one and done, right? One and done. Got this one. Hopefully I don't fuck this up. But as a girl dad, thank you, buddy. But as a girl dad, I feel I don't know. I feel like if I had a young Stu, I'm like, you'll be all right, fucker. Like, I feel like I'd be a little bit more harsh. I am so much more nicer of a human being, even when I mean, again, and it's like not
all
flawless.
Around, right?
Yeah, all around. Like,
yeah.
I am generally nicer. And there's moments where I'm still kind of a prick, but generally, I would say if there was like a whoop band for my pleasure and my temperament in the world, it would be like, oh man, you're actually doing way better since 2017 when you had that nugget.
Dude, that's so true. And I find that I'm far more empathetic now. And I don't know if it's my age combined with being a dad and specifically having a girl, but it's the exact same thing, man. Like, I'm just a nice, like, I was a fucking asshole. Like, and I still am, like you said, in many ways when it comes to, if anything's interfering with my, like, I'm trying to get something done or whatever. And like, I didn't even like kids until I had a kid. Like, I couldn't talk to kids. It was weird to me. It was awkward. I never wanted to hold anybody's baby. Now I love kids, dude. I fucking love kids so much. It's like a switch goes off, like a biological switch in your brain that makes you, more personable, more, I'm more even keeled now in certain areas, like so we have this lady who watches Carter during the day, and she also watches a pair of twins who are Carter's age, and that's it, the 3 of them. So, and the twins are a boy and girl. So even now, and I don't think their parents will ever hear this. I'll see him, like, I'm like, fucking back the fuck up, brother. Like, don't get too fucking close, dog. Like, you got your toys over there. Like, but it's that instinct is strong, and like, we'll be at the playground, and I'm like, don't fucking come near her.
Yeah.
So that aspect is there for sure, and I'm gonna have to grapple with that in a big way, because I mean, even just seeing your kid fall down, you're like, fuck. But then, like, seeing some other human that is out of your control do something to your child, man, that paternal instinct comes roaring up.
So this is so interesting. So I'm not the complete opposite, but I'm close. So I'll go pick up Francie from school, and they have an outdoor playground area. And a lot of the kids will go and fuck off and play for a couple minutes while all the moms. So I'm like one of the few dads that actually goes and picks up, right? Because the way me and Zoe have our schedule, I'm always pick up. And so I'm the only dad out there, and I'm dressed like this, and I'm just like, all right, I'm kind of texting or whatever, watching her play, and she's going up a slide, and some other girl or some other kid like buck her off the fucking slide, and I don't even flinch. I literally like look up, and I just watch to see how she reacts. And then it's like new information. I just download the information, and like, we'll talk about it later. And like, to the point to a fault where one day she was playing, and I saw it, like she was playing on an obstacle course thing on the playground. And I'm like, she's going to take that step and eat it. She's going to take that step. And like, I saw this in my own head. Yeah, and I literally, as a parent, I wasn't frozen. I was like, well, she's not going to die. She's going to be just fine. And there's a part of me where I beat myself. I'm like, you're such a piece of shit, Stu. You could have saved your kid from skinning her knee, and you didn't. And I don't know what that is. I think it's another, obviously, nurture versus nature thing, where I'm just like, short of her getting seriously hurt or anything beyond that, I'm like, you'll be just fine. Like, little boys come up, like, little boy punched her in the arm. I was like, do it. Like, go. Like, hit him in the arm. You probably get away with kicking him. Like, go for it. Bite his arm.
Fucking face.
Yeah. So, it's so funny, though. Like, girl dads, like, I've met guys that have both responses to it.
Well, I have that. Okay, so I do need to clarify. I have that instinct.
Yeah.
For sure. But I catch myself.
Sure.
So, like, I will, same scenario, I'll be like, oh, she's about to eat it. Yeah. And I'll let her do it because I know it's important for her to learn. Now, when it comes to, like, some other little shit-ass kid fucking with my daughter, especially if they're, like, a little older and it's a boy.
Yeah.
Oh, dude. Yeah. I will fight your dad right now. Like, I will fuck your dad up. Like, come and get this kid. But, you know, and it's just like, I'm not a helicopter parent because I don't want to be that. Like, I will let her get hurt, do her thing, scrape her knees, whatever. But yeah, like, you know,
there's got to be a cool part of you that's like, you picture that scene where like she's old enough to have those conversations and someone's like, my dad's gonna kick your dad's ass, and she just looks at them like, are you fucking high? Like,
dude, I know, I talk about that a lot, like, or like that first conversation with like the first boyfriend. Like, come here and have a seat.
Like
let's
Bad
chat.
Boys 2,
Yes.
where he shows
oh my
up.
God.
Yeah,
dude, that's
just showing up with guns, and you have your drunk buddy coming. I ain't going back.
Dude.
I ain't going back.
Oh my God, I can't wait for that. It's stressful though, because like, look, we have the unique perspective of knowing what it's like to be a teenage boy.
100%.
You know? So I know what those motherfuckers are thinking.
Yes.
And, like, I'm not going to go easy on them.
It's like this. So someone asked me, Francie was like maybe 2, and someone's like, what's it like being a girl dad? I'm like, did you ever picture cleaning poop out of a vagina, fuckface?
Right.
No, I bet you didn't. Guess what? That is my world now.
Yep.
I spend a good portion of my day cleaning poop out of a vagina.
Damn good at it, too.
And that is like this like unlock where like I think, you know, anyone younger listens to that and goes, oh, fuck that. Trust me. I would have said fuck that too. It's not like I was, you know, I didn't get to pick my options. I wasn't ordering a Tesla, right? Like this is just how it works.
It's how it is, man.
It's how it is. And but then you do that, and yeah, you know, as she gets older, it's like, all right, well, I was 15 once. I was just trying to fuck anything with a hole, right? Like, you could have been my couch cushions. You could have been another chick, like, whatever. Like,
I would like to take this moment to apologize to my couch cushions. Jesus Christ.
And all my fucking tube socks that could have stand up on their own. They were that rigid. It's
everybody has
just
the same
snap
stories,
them in half.
man.
Yeah, just could have snapped those tube socks in half.
I'm not a degenerate. Thank you.
But no, being a girl dad is interesting. I didn't have any brothers. I only had my sister, Julie. And yeah, it's something that is an extremely. Are we
It's
young?
made me a better human for sure.
I feel like we're average. We're not young. Because how old are you?
33.
Yeah, I'm 35. So I feel like we're par for the like average for being parents. Or are we young?
These days we're pretty average. Yeah.
We're average.
Yeah, because I think we're the top end of the millennial generation, right? Like the oldest millennials, pretty much.
Older millennials, yeah, 85, 83 kind of scenario.
87.
87, sorry.
Other
yeah.
way, bro. Come on.
Other
now.
way. Bad math. All right.
So yeah, dude, it's made me a better human. It's made me more empathetic. It's made me more patient. Being a girl, and exact same as what you said, dude. If it was a boy, it would not be the same.
No.
Like it would not. I would be like completely like fucking figure it out. You know, get yourself up, like pick yourself up by your bootstraps. You know, all that shit. Like I can tell it would be that way.
I feel like I saved tens of thousands of dollars on potential therapy needed by just having a girl. Like it just like was software downloaded to me instantly over the net.
Yeah,
like it just like
it does. It makes you a better guy.
Yeah,
for sure.
I want to go back. We were touching on something. Your return to fitness, and you started. You were unfunctional. You took a hiatus. You realized you want to do something you love, and you went to the powerlifting, bodybuilding. Was there ever a point? Why didn't you go back to CrossFit?
I just love what I was doing so much. I mean, I love that whole training for size and strength, and I just don't enjoy fucking rope climbs and pistol squats and, you know, all of that shit. Like the one thing I did really love about it was the competitive aspect of it. That is always a void that I have, trying to fill that competitive need in life. You know, I try to do it in different ways now, like just trying to be the best at business or social or whatever. Like I got going on, being the best dad even. I miss that, but it's just I like looking the way I look and training the way I train, and I'm just happy, man.
Can I ask you this? So with CrossFit, I find it, and again, this is coming from someone, I started this in like 06 to wherever we are now, or many years, numbers of years that is, but I see a couple guys enter CrossFit, and I see them enter it enthusiastically when they, at either their gym or beyond that, are kind of at the top of the pecking order. Like they're one of the dudes, either even just hyper locally in their own gym. I look at like in CrossFit, was there ever a point where you're like, all right, if it's 30 clean and jerk for time, I'm your guy. Is it 1RM deadlift? I'm your guy. Is it 40 chest to bar pull-ups followed by a 1,000 meter row? I'm not your guy. Was there an element where you're like, the highs and lows of CrossFit, good at it, bad at it, good at it, bad at it, versus powerlifting and bodybuilding, you're definitely the
Good.
guy. Was there anything like that where you're like, you know what, I don't want to leave the gym and feel like I failed or I did poorly. I need this to be something positive for me all the time. Did that ever play into your psyche when you were deciding, like, you know what, I could go back to CrossFit South End, but I really like clang and bang at the gym, at the traditional weightlifting?
Yeah, I honestly, I don't know if I've thought about it specifically in that context. So, but I will say that feeling of just laying on your back at the end of a fucking workout, heaving and breathing heavily and like feeling like you're on the precipice of death. I actually loved that. I loved that feeling, and I loved how humbling it was. So I don't know. I really don't know, because I just love what I do now. But you're right, there isn't that dose of humble pie that comes with it, which I do think people need.
Yeah.
I mean, I can push myself, on max effort deadlift or whatever.
But very few often are you working out with a guy who's making you feel like a bitch.
Exactly. I'm not.
Yeah.
And I think I could use a little more of that in my life, to be quite honest.
Yeah.
So.
And I mean, but like, it's like find bigger dudes.
Right.
Or is it, what is the
where I
thing?
train now, shout out to the office gym in Lake Wiley, there's some monsters who are stronger than me. So, I definitely get that, to an extent. But it's also like, I don't know. For me, it's transitioned, I guess, a little more from the competitive thing that it was with CrossFit. Because it was, during that time, I was always looking at what's Duncan doing? What's fucking Ben doing?
You were not looking at what Duncan was doing.
Come on. All right. I love you, Duncan. I was always looking over my shoulder at what's the other guy doing? Like, I need to make sure I beat them. Now it's more of a personal journey.
Yeah.
It's just like, it's more like meditation now versus then.
Yeah.
It was more like really just trying to be a fucking animal and beat everybody.
Yeah. And there was no shade to Duncan. He's the funniest dude ever.
I love Duncan.
Duncan, did I hear right? Duncan, if you're listening to this, I heard you just submitted your cancellation to the gym. I'm going to show up at your fucking house.
To this gym?
Yeah, I think so. He rejoined, and I don't know. I'm just up
I have no room to talk because I'm not even a fucking member, but I got a key.
That was the hardest thing, man, is people, gym owners, when they have friends or people that go like a couple of transaction points beyond just the customer and they cancel. Like, you wouldn't believe Johnny canceled his gym membership. I'm like, what's wrong with that? Like, well, me and Johnny have hung out before. I'm like, I still don't understand the issue. Yeah. I still don't understand this. Going back to business, do you feel now with you that your size, strength, all that is now it's like a business expense? It's an overhead you must maintain? Or do you ever see yourself like Alex Viada, who is like, if you because you're such a nerd, you would love Viada. He's North Carolina based.
Oh, cool.
He is a fucking absolute genius, but he is the guy who looks like you and can run an ultra. Like one of those fucking psychos, but when he gets on and he has an IG live where he talks about fucking peptide conversion, and the only people listening to that are fucking other nerds that are in that scene. But like, do you see your size and what you've developed and the physique you've developed as an overhead of maintenance now? Because that's what everyone's latched onto.
Yeah, it's definitely become who I am. It defines me. My image is certainly a big part of what I do and why people follow me. And it is a big part of the message that I'm putting out there, right? Like, if I'm talking about it's okay to be a meathead and be emotionally vulnerable and intelligent and into these other pursuits, but I'm not a meathead, then that doesn't really transfer, right? Like, so yeah, I mean, I look at it as when I go to the gym, it is part of my business now. And when I, shave my mohawk, it's fucking part of my business now. And it's like, it's who I am. But I will say that it as of yet, it doesn't feel like a facade, because it is still just who I want to be. If I decide in 5 years that I want to run ultras and that I want to switch to, a completely different modality, then I'll just fucking do that, and I'll talk about that, and I'll show that journey on going from being 260 pounds to whatever and running ultras. Like, I think that no matter what you do, it's going to be interesting to people if you just show them as you do it.
The journey,
yeah. But yeah, to some extent, man, for sure. I mean, my logo for the podcast has a mohawk and a beard, so it's definitely become that thing. And the funny thing about that is, like, this mohawk started as just a joke. It was like I had left my corporate job at the beginning of COVID, or let me rephrase, I was terminated from my corporate job at the beginning of COVID. And just as a fun thing, dude, I shaved the mohawk. Carter loves it. So my daughter loves it. So I kept it. And then it was like, I went viral holding up the sign, which is something we haven't even talked about. And then it was like I was recognized for, looking a certain way. And I just kept doing it. And now it's like, this just it is what it is. Dave Hurt has a mohawk and a beard,
Yeah.
So
it's interesting.
like Mr. T.
Yeah, very, very. You know what? It is. Yeah, very modern day white Mr. T with the beard.
I hear it all the fucking
You?
time.
Yeah,
Dude, I either hear,
a great reference.
oh, you're like white Mr. T, or I hear like, are you an MMA fighter or a professional wrestler? And I'm like, no, I'm just a dad. What's up?
Going back to what you're talking about, like, documenting the journey, right?
Yeah.
Regardless of what you decide to do.
Yeah,
I truly believe so. A lot of what I do work wise is content strategy for X business. And one of the things I truly believe is, and I use this line a lot in when I'm pitching a company, is there were hundreds of thousands of roommate situations, maybe 5, 6, 7 roommates, all tan with dark hair in New Jersey, living on the shore, having debauchery every fucking night. Everyone's experiencing that. But if you can document it, you can now show it. Now you can create Snooks and Pauly D's and all these other people.
True,
so when you think about, like, again, let's say you went from mohawk, beard, and whatever, and then you eventually you went to Ironman and decathlon training, there is a whole niche of a human being that wants to watch that journey. Because they are too intimidated to pull the trigger themselves. I want to watch you do first. That's the majority of YouTube. The majority of YouTube is it's Google for what I want to see how to do something. Google is just search for what is something. So when I need to physically, visibly see how to do something, I go to YouTube. And before I dip my toe in the water, when I dip my toe in the water, before I jump in, YouTube is the place to go. I'm looking to go buy a new Tesla, so I'm fucking on YouTube every fucking night looking at different Tesla guys, blah, 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 blah. Or I want to start a weightlifting cycle. I want to search everybody who's done a Wendler 5x5, whatever it may be, and I'm going to watch dudes go through that journey. And I truly believe in the world of content creation, which you and me both live in very deeply, it's very much people want to see the journey in which you've gone through before they do. And if you can take, because what you're doing isn't unique. Putting it on blast, there's 2 buttons. Hitting record is the hardest button in the world at first. Hitting upload is the second hardest button. Because now once you put it on upload, now the commentary happens. Now you're out there. Now your daughter's going to see it. Now that YouTube channel is going to exist until it doesn't. And then,
I want to talk about that.
And then, but it's interesting, man, is that anyone listening to this, no matter if you're going through something, assume hundreds of thousands of people are also going through it, and put it into YouTube. So if it's like, I take care of my grandma who got sick with COVID, and then I got sick with COVID and we were quarantined together, like, put that into YouTube in 1,000 different ways. And if you can't find anything about it, you're on the precipice of a 1 million subscriber channel over time if you do it well. Like, that's just the opportunity.
Dude, and it's, you made a great point in all of that I emphasize. So part of what I do, I interview potential sales reps and athletes for Phorm as part of my job, my affiliation with them. And I always hear, oh, there's nothing unique about me. There's nothing special about me. Nobody's going to care. I'm like, exactly. There's nothing unique about you. So that means you're going to resonate with a bunch of motherfuckers.
If you believe there's also a lot of other motherfuckers who don't feel there's anything unique about them.
Or like, oh, I'm just a mom with 2 kids who goes to the gym at 4 a.m. and then has to do this and this. Yeah, you know how many people are like that want to watch you fucking do that?
Yeah.
Like, that's the key. Like, if you're truly unique and there's nobody else like you, it's probably not a lot of motherfuckers that want to see what you're doing.
Sure.
Right? Because it doesn't resonate with them. So, like, the fact that you're not unique is great. Like, you can be rare, but you want to have other people out there that, like you said, are going through the same thing and they want to see what you're doing, man. And it's like, that's powerful because they're not putting it out there, so you be the one to put it out there and they're going to consume your content. And so, like, it's so funny that you said that, because that is like one of the number one things I deal with when I'm talking to people who are considering being part of our sales rep program. They're like, man, nobody's going to want to see what I'm doing. I'm like, I want to see what you're doing. You know, I think it's pretty cool that you work on a farm and you also make it to the gym and you have 3 kids and this and that. And it's like, I want to see your life. I want to see what that's like. Like, we're voyeuristic as a species, like by default.
Yeah.
You know?
So I want to talk about the first Phorm gig. So the last piece of content we got to shoot together just in the lounge, and this was right before you got terminated at the previous job.
Yeah.
And we were talking about you kind of going all in.
I was talking about quitting.
Yeah. So I remember you sent me a
Thanks
text.
for that.
I remember you sent me a text like, I don't know. You're like, yeah, guess what? It actually happened. But so
You
your
saw
job
that
now
video,
with
bro.
I remember you telling me first Phorm really isn't, they're not looking for people that have tens of thousands of followers. They're looking for the everyday person.
Yeah.
And with you being the sales rep and kind of like pre-qualifying the talent before they get the first Phorm stamp of approval, what's that called? Like, are they a first Phorm ambassador?
So the program is called the Legionnaire program.
Okay.
It's our sales affiliate program.
Got it. So essentially they're doing something exciting or interesting, even with a modest, mild, small following, but you think they're special enough that people are going to relate to them. I got to imagine there's times where you get them on the phone and you're like, okay, this is like, again, he lives in rural Ohio and he barrels hay and he does all this stuff. And dude, this guy's content could be really great. And then it actually comes to it and you watch the guy's stuff over the course of months. And it's just, I mean, it's not engaged. Your guys are just like, like, do you guys ever have to go and be like, hey, listen, this isn't working?
So very rarely would we do that, but we have an entire team of coaches at HQ that work with these people. So they'll say like, hey, look, man, you're doing this and this and this here. Like, here's maybe how you want to try it. Like, we have all like a huge training library that Legionnaires get access to on like social media, marketing, all that stuff. Like, and then they get their own one-on-one coach that works with them on it. So usually we can get someone to improve. But yeah, I mean, at the end of the day, I'm not saying it's for everyone, for sure. Like, and if I alluded to that, it's definitely not for everyone. Like, not everybody can jump in front of the camera and talk and be interesting, right? Yeah. But I think for the most part, we underestimate how interesting our lives are. If we're willing to put in the work to show it, there's going to be people who want to see it. So very rarely do we kick people out. But I mean, it has happened,
sure.
You know, and for us, it's like, so like you hit the nail on the head. Like we've done the whole 8 million follower route, you know, all that stuff. And it just doesn't take as well as like somebody who's got like 5,000 followers who are fucking gung ho bought into what they're doing. And it's like, you know, I'll talk to people who are on the fence about it. They're like, man, I only got 1,200 followers. I don't know if I should. I'm like, picture 1,200 people in a room. It's a lot of fucking people, man. Like, you got 1,200 people that give a fuck about what you're saying. That's a big deal. And they're like, oh, I never thought about it that way. I'm like, yeah. If they're real followers, if they're bought into what you're doing, and he goes back to Simon Sinek. He wrote what is it?
Leaders Eat Last. He wrote. He had the Golden Circle.
It's like Raving Fans.
Raving Fans is. I don't know if that was Sinek or Sinek.
Well, anyway, like having 1,000 raving fans.
Yeah.
You know, versus having a shitload of people who are just going to put up the eggplant emoji when you post your ass. Like, it doesn't translate. You know.
Yeah. Do you think?
I'm about to.
You gotta take a piss.
Piss myself.
Go take a piss. Yeah.
All right.
We're good.
Sorry.
No, you're good. Take a piss. I'll do it with you. But the thing with the micro influencer that I think that's where all the opportunity is. And
I think so.
For the exact reason you said. I don't want to write a book. I like making videos. But if I ever did, on how with 1,000 followers you should be. We went to the bar just recently. I think I mentioned this to you. I believe in the thesis, and I think it only exists up to 3,000. But with 1,000 followers, you can have $100,000 in revenue, 2,200, 3,000 followers, 300,000. The math works out. Truly, it has to be a very deep following, and I believe the only way you could be deep is to be very vulnerable.
Yes.
That is truly the only way you do it. So, like, when you think of someone, you know, is Kim Kardashian very vulnerable? Yeah, she's got a whole reality show following around. She's crying. She gets
certainly in the beginning
Yeah.
versus the rest of folks
Sure.
in society.
Yeah. But I mean, like in the general, like, but if you're really vulnerable, like the bigger you are, the more people want to know about the inside of your life, right? The smaller you are, people are still very, like, there's a kid named, his name is Roman Atwood. So if you look up Roman Atwood vlogs, I don't know, 10 million subscribers. It's just something crazy.
Jesus
out of
Christ.
Ohio. Just some random hit kid out of Ohio that started doing some fun little prank videos. He would like put his son on a tractor, and his wife would come out and see the son on the tractor, and she'd be like, that's great. She'd go to get the lemonade, and he'd take his son off and put a dummy, strap it to the tractor, and it'd be off in the farm field, and he would explode the tractor. He blew up the tractor, and his wife would freak thinking that their son had just died.
Dude, I'm a subscriber already.
Dude, and he fucking films it, and then he tells her he's joking, and it's fucking incredible. It's as good as you think it is.
Jesus.
But like the vulnerability of the micro influencer is key. I think the revenue potential is also the highest if you can truly establish a niche. Like you literally can go through and show X amount of followers, and then this percentage shows engagement, right? Like you can clearly call out anybody who has purchased some followers or whatever it may be based on the number of people that follow them and the amount of engagement they get at the bottom. It's like, there's no way, bro, you can have 13,000 followers and 4 comments. That doesn't exist.
Yeah, I only have 28, almost 29,000, I think. And I'll look at somebody who has like 150,000 and they're getting like less comments and likes on their shit. I'm like, dude, you clearly bought that.
Yeah.
Like, or I don't know, like your followers aren't engaged in your content. I don't know what it is, but it's like, you can tell for sure, right?
And the only people you're going to trick is the average bystander.
Yeah.
You will never trick a sponsor.
No, definitely not.
Like, and
we're so far beyond those days now.
And the only reason you want a ton of followers is because at some point you go beyond B2C, direct to the consumer, and you go B2B, where you're a marketing arm.
Yeah, you throw your right hook.
Correct. Yeah. And when we have enough followers, you essentially are doing SeatGeek ads and fucking, Vimeo. Like you just have commercials on your shit. But yeah, in a small micro, in the micro influencer world, you're essentially, you go B2C all day. Like I do it with Micro Gym University or my calls, or you might do it with nutritional coaching and what you do. Let me ask you this: as you've converted and you've kind of like, full-time job went bye-bye. You went all in on your coaching online. What was the hardest? Have you hit where you want to be in your business of Dave Hurd, the business of it, like the actual LLC, money in the bank, all that? What are the things that are still on your to-do list, or what are the things you still need to capitalize to get it to where you want to be? Because when you leave corporate America, like I did at some point, I left the global gym world. Yeah, sure. I'm like, I'm doing this. I got fired too, just like you. But I was like, okay, I'm going to accomplish this. Where are you on that journey?
Well, it depends on the time frame that you're talking about, because I certainly have aspirations for certain things, 5-10 years out. I'm that kind of person. But like, no, I'm not where I want to be, even in the current frame of reference, because I've made some mistakes in scaling. I've let some other things distract me.
Like what?
Like, in terms of, so I'm talking about the coaching business, right? In terms of the coaching business, I've let the podcast distract me. I've let Phorm distract me. I've let real estate investing distract me. So every single one of them are revenue streams, right? I think I've spread myself too thin on looking at 6 different things versus going all in on one thing.
You're a Swiss Army knife versus a pocket knife.
Yeah, and I've always been that kind of person, which is weird because I'm an obsessive, addictive personality, so I get obsessed with things. But I think part of it is because I want the security of having multiple endeavors. But I think you can do that to a fault, to where you don't go in enough on any given endeavor. I mean, so now my number one endeavor is the podcast. I'm still coaching. I have a core number of clients that I will always work with. I love. I'm not focused on trying to grow that as much as I am the podcast right now, because I see the podcast as being an opportunity to spread a very important message that we need right now. And that's, the message of embracing traditional masculine traits in young men across America and beyond, and talking to a lot of these guys who exhibit that. And we've gotten a great response to it. And so I want to really push that. And that's why we're building the studio and everything. But no, as far as the coaching goes, I haven't done as much as I had originally envisioned with it because I've pursued other endeavors. And I don't know if that's necessarily a bad thing, but I do know that it's a trait of mine that I try to dial back, because I get that like shiny object syndrome where, oh, real estate investing, let's own bars, let's do a fitness vlog, let's coach people, let's fucking do a podcast, let's do this. And I need to really double down on being the best at one thing.
Is your nutrition coaching one-to-many or one-to-one?
It's one-to-one.
One-to-one, which obviously isn't scalable at a certain point.
Correct.
Right?
And I always knew it wasn't scalable. So I was always thinking in terms of, okay, maybe writing plans that are very affordable that people can buy, ebooks, etc. So that was my scalability route in that realm. But then I just sort of unexpectedly started this podcast, and it fucking, really, really took off in my eyes. I'd never done anything that got 22,000 views, and so I've been really doubling down on that because I enjoy it. I really fucking love sitting down and just talking to interesting people. So I still obviously take care of my current clients and make sure everybody's good, but I'm not actively seeking new clients, and I'm not actively pursuing developing any sort of ebooks or scalable products in the coaching realm. I'll always have that, and I'll always have that as a possibility. And I see the podcast as potentially a way to reach a bunch of people and then throw a right hook and say, hey, I've developed this product. Here's what it is. But yeah, the scalability was always a limiting factor with coaching in my eyes anyway, because I just do one-to-one, handwritten plan, very bespoke, I guess you would say, or custom. So that's kind of where I am with all of that stuff now. So again, I don't know if it's a good or bad thing, but
it's, I think everyone, scaling, your business is such a buzzword, right?
It really is.
What I do with my clients, I have MGU, Micro Gym University. That's a one-to-many, but the vast majority of what I do is one-to-one.
Right.
And there is no scaling that.
So you're trading for time, your time for money.
Correct. And I have people argue me but why? I'm like, lawyers, doctors. Right. You do realize that there's a lot of, here's the deal. The only time someone argues that one-to-one is not scalable is when the hourly amount of the revenue generated from one-to-one isn't high enough.
Yeah.
And I think of burnout the same way, and I'd be really curious your take on burnout. I believe burnout is essentially where I do something and my fulfillment's low and the compensation I derive from it is also low. Because in the beginning, there's a lot of things we all do where the fulfillment's high, the compensation's low. We don't give a fuck. We love it.
That's where my podcast is right now.
Yeah, exactly. I love it. I don't give a fuck.
Right.
But eventually, if fulfillment and compensation don't rise to a certain number, that creates resentment, jadedness, quote-unquote burnout. Since you've left corporate America, what element of your business ventures and your activities have you gotten the closest to burnout, if not there?
Man, I don't think I've gotten close to burnout on any given one. I've gotten close to burnout holistically by trying to pursue too many different things, if that makes sense. But I haven't gotten to where I was burned out on coaching or burned out on, definitely not podcasting because it's so new. Honestly, the only time I've ever felt truly burnt out was when I owned the bar business and when I was working the corporate job and juggling all of that. And since then, I really haven't felt anywhere close to the amount of burnout I felt at that time. So yeah, I don't know if that's a good answer, but that's kind of where I am.
It is. It's interesting. So if you stick with my theory of compensation and fulfillment, there are certain things there are people that can have fulfillment, and if it's maxed out, but compensation is low as fuck, they never burn out. If fulfillment's high enough, it can always over replace compensation as long as you've got some other thing. Maybe your wife
survive.
Right. Your wife's the breadwinner or something like that.
Yeah.
The opposite is not true though. Right? Like there are people that, that have like great compensation. I got to admit, with your bar business, with your full-time job, you made enough to survive and thrive, but you just hate it.
Fucking fulfillment.
Zero fulfillment. Yep. And that is such a fast track to that. And I don't know if you find this, another thing I get from people when they're like one-on-one coaching, they're like, bro, what the fuck's wrong with you? Right? You're like, if you derive the higher hourly amount, but there's something about working with individual business owners that just, I feel like I work with 40 a month. That's my cap. I do 40 calls a month.
I was going to say, like, if you enjoy it,
yeah,
people don't factor that in. They're like, what the fuck, why are you doing that? Well, maybe I just fucking like doing it.
But I think what everyone thinks of, like, okay, well, a doctor goes in every day and he gets a patient and he has the same 30 patients a day. He answers the same fucking questions every day. I think the key is for anyone listening that isn't a one-to-one model and you don't want to have burnout. You want to keep your fulfillment high. Number one, have a compensation model set up high enough to where, again, you truly feel like your time is being valued. Your hourly amount you make, you're like, well, fuck, this is great. Like, I'm not trading this in for anything.
And you're also going to put in your best work.
Put in your best work. Yeah. And then also, like, make sure the client base is interesting. Like, my favorite is House. I used to watch House all the time.
Dude,
okay?
Oh, my God, favorite show.
So House would only take, like, if you're everyone listening to this, Gregory House, right? Hugh Laurie, yeah. Yep. Amazing actor. And he would only take, like, he'd have like 7 dying people. And he'd be like, no, I'm not interested. No, not interested. No, I'll take that one.
Yep.
And
most
that
perplexing case.
Yeah. And it was always, a foreman always thought it was sarcoidosis. That's like,
dude, I was about to say that. Why was it always sarcoidosis?
Always sarcoidosis. But like that's the thing is, like, the cool part about a one-to-one, you gotta kiss a bunch of frogs to get to this point. But once you get there, anyone in that one-to-one business, you can kind of have your pick of clients. You can take a call with someone, get paid for that call, and then say, sorry, I don't think it's a good fit. Next call, sorry, I don't think it's a good fit. And it's like, ooh, this is interesting. I would love to work with this project. Yeah. And it's a really cool place to be that, again, as long as you can make sure compensation and fulfillment is high enough. Do you see yourself wanting to make the one-to-one coaching a priority in the future? Or is it right now I'm kind of pushing most of the chips towards the podcast and the awareness kind of route?
Yeah, the latter. I think that the one-to-one coaching will always be something I do for the sheer fact that I enjoy it, but I'll limit that to a handful of folks, and I'll charge accordingly. But right now, I'm more interested in the one-to-many aspect of the podcast and getting the message out, and honestly, in a bit of a selfish way, talking to really cool people, like interviewing interesting people who have done it and like maybe, are a few steps ahead of me in the journey, or have done something different that's very interesting, or are people that I think I can pull something out of that's valuable to my audience. Like, that appeals to me in a big way. Yeah. And so that's where my interest is right now. Like, when I interviewed Seth Feroce, he was like, man, I've never talked about this on my podcast. Like, you're getting shit out of me that I never talk about. And it's like, that is like the golden fucking thing to hear, right? And so if I can keep doing that, I am really excited about that aspect of doing it. If I keep doing it, it turns out I fucking suck at it, and that was like lightning striking, then yeah, I mean, I'll pivot. But right now, that's where my fulfillment is.
When you decided, because your podcast, how long are you running those interviews?
Anywhere from like 1 to 3 hours.
Okay, so it's long form, kind of like
long
this.
Form like this, yeah.
When I made the decision to go long form, it's obviously inspired by the guys who've done it really, really well. And I started doing my research on what do great interviews do. I looked at Cronkite. I looked at fucking Barbara Walters.
Same. It's so interesting.
I looked at everybody.
The art of the conversation.
Correct. Guy Raz with NPR. Yeah. I looked at everybody, not just Rogan. Like, Rogan does it great, but like, I don't think he's the best thing to look at necessarily. There's because his fundamentals are hidden.
He's just a natural.
He's a natural, yeah. and but there's a lot of guys that they have fundamentals that you can learn from, right? When you were doing, and because I know you, what was your preparation like? Because I listened to these podcasts like last night. I was lying in bed, listening to your stuff, and you were ready. You were 100% prepared, good to go. There was never a moment where it was you were because I know I can recognize when someone's grabbing for a question in an interview. I know it in a fucking heartbeat.
Sure.
There was never a moment with that with you. But from my appearance, from what I saw, you didn't have your notes or anything like that. Typically, if it wasn't you, who I already know very well, I typically would have my iPad here, and I have 5 big bold titles with 3 subpoints, and that just allows me to stay on track where I want the story to go.
Yeah.
I know you very well, so I get to kind of cheat on this one. But for you, when you were thinking, okay, I know you're not cocky enough to be like, oh, I'm just gonna fucking ask questions. I'm dope at asking questions, and I'm a great. What did you do to improve your interviewing style before your first one, or as you've been going through it?
Yeah. So I think that the interview is like a delicate dance between keeping it organic, right, as organic as possible, conversational, but then also being prepared and having some things you want to discuss, right? So like for me personally, I don't do well having notes in front of me, because what I end up doing is sticking too hard to those notes and not letting the conversation be organic and flowing. So I have to do a lot of preparation up front with making sure I know absolutely what I want to talk about, and I hammer it into my head, because then I'm able to use that as the scaffolding for the interview, but also let it be as free-flowing and organic and conversational as possible, because I think that makes for such a better interview. Like when it's just a question, answer, like that shit loses my attention, and I know I'm not unique in that regard. So I do research on my guests. The amount of which depends on the guest. Like some of them I've followed forever and I know a lot about, and I'm just like ready to talk to them. And, several of them, we had a bunch of phone calls leading up to it and text exchanges. And so, I use that as preparation, and you can get a feel for who they are in that regard too, sort of the off camera conversations. And, it's just a combination of all of that, man. And like for me, a lot of preparing to be a podcaster was just examining who do I really like, who's in the game now, who's doing it well. Obviously, Rogan is good, but there's a whole bunch of other ones. And just putting countless hours into listening to them from the new perspective of you're paying attention to how they're conducting the conversation. I don't even want to say interview, because if it's really good, it's a conversation, right? It's not just a call and response. It's a fucking trade of ideas consistently. And so that's how I approach it. And if I'm too structured, it'll be shitty. And if I'm too free flowing, it'll be shitty. So I got to just like have a mental scaffolding of what I want to talk about. I put in the work. I make sure I research these people, and I know what they've got going on in their life. And I know what they've already talked about. I think that's important, because if you just talk about something like with Seth, I know what he's fucking talked about a million fucking times. And I know the questions people all ask him. I'm over here talking about nature versus nurture and raising a daughter, and so that pulled shit out of him that nobody had pulled out of him before. So like, that's what I try to do. So you got to put in the time listening to like all the conversations Stu Brower has had. Okay, well, I'm definitely not going to talk about that, because that horse has been beaten to a fucking bloody pulp. It's a horse milkshake. Like, I'm going to talk about, something way different.
Yeah.
And I think that's what it's about. And I think you can tell when someone has done that,
Do you see yourself ever going monologue? Like ever having segments of your podcast that's just, because you monologue all the time on IG.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, once the studio is built, my plan is to do 2 to 3 episodes a week. One of those will be a guest, but the others could be just myself. It could be a round table between me and recurring co-hosts who are people that I choose to be a part of the show. I think it's really good to have a running development of personalities, like Schrader coming on every once in a while, and people get to know that person, and that's just another thing that pulls
them in.
It's like
Beetlejuice to Howard Stern.
Exactly. Yeah, 100%, right? And I like that, so I'm going to try to do that. And again, that's once the studio's built, which it's almost there. Just dropped an obscene amount of money on fucking equipment that should be here in the next few days. What was the question? I'm sorry.
No, I was just curious. So I was thinking, like, when I think about Rogan, right?
Yeah.
Or any of those guys, amazing interviewers. Or if I think of Howard Stern, amazing interviewers, and they went all in it. They never really had monologue.
Right. Oh, the monologue.
And monologue,
piece, yeah. I do want to do that.
Yeah, because I feel like there's some guys that rant really well. I think of
Well, you do it really well.
So I like if I could do anything outside of this, it would be if I could rewire myself. I could not do it genetically as I am now, but I do stand-up comedy. And I would want to just publicly speak all day, every day, and just go on fucking rants. Very Bill Burr-esque.
I was about to bring up Bill Burr.
Yeah.
I was like, you know who does a great job on his podcast?
Yeah, his Monday morning podcast. He does an amazing gig.
Theo Vaughn does a good job.
Most comedians do monologue podcasts because that's what they're used to. Yeah. Rogan is actually the exception to the whole thing.
Yeah, Rogan's just...
Yeah, so it's really interesting. I'm always just curious when people are starting podcasts. So I've done a lot of podcast consulting where like, okay, let's set it up and this and the gear and all that is easy. But it's essentially, okay, what is the show going to look like? How many? When, and then what are the themes and styles? And generally I try to get people to do an interview and a monologue style. I think it's so important to be able to develop a monologue.
Well, I was going to say, you've got to continue to develop yourself as a character that people want to come back to hear from, because you're not necessarily always going to have that exciting guest.
Correct. And even shitty monologues become great blog posts. Give it to the copywriter, and she cuts it into a 400-word blog post kind of scenario. But the ability to rant and monologue is such an important skill. Like public speaking is like all my monologue stuff was the only reason I ever got paid speaking gigs, is 100%. And then I created that entire series, that talking to myself, where I just film myself in the alley behind the building talking to no one.
That's some of the best shit, man.
But I just tried to make it seem like, okay, this is what it would look like if I would get to speak in front of 10,000 people. This is what I would deliver. When in reality, if 10,000 people were in front of me, I'd probably be shitting my pants simultaneously.
I'd need a few more of these.
Yeah.
For sure.
But I'm really big on anyone starting a podcast and like practicing the monologue, because I think it's so important. Or when the worst thing for any interviewer, which hopefully you never experience, is when the guest sucks.
Oh, man.
They're the fucking worst, and you're like, okay, this is up to me. I got to carry this thing.
Pulling teeth.
And it does happen, and it's not that they suck. It's just that they're nervous, they're not good on interview, or they're typically very introverted, crazy smart humans. Like Rogan interviewing Elon Musk was more a testament to Rogan than it was Elon Musk.
I was about to say, like, that then becomes, how good of a host are you, man? Yeah. Like, you got to... And presumably, if you're a good fucking host, you've already done your work and you know what you're in for, bringing this person into the studio, right? I've really enjoyed nerding out on all, like, the art of the conversation, interviewing the podcast. Like, I'm so excited for what we have coming up, you know, like some of the guests that I've already reached out to and had soft confirmations on and shit. And it's like, we haven't really talked about this much, but like this past year, I went viral a few times, and being able to piggyback that to actually get some of these people to take me seriously, because that was the whole thing, is like, I'm a nobody. And now all of a sudden these people are returning my messages because I'm the sign guy, quote unquote, right?
Yeah.
And it's like,
for context for everyone, if everyone's familiar, they're originally what a lot of people hear, the sign guy, they think of that guy in New York City
who's killing it way more than me.
Yeah, so New York City, he stands there, all the people are walking by, and he holds up a white sign that is just essentially a PSA, like a one-sentence PSA. And then you did it on your, I believe that's your deck, your deck on the back of your house?
Just
one of your
yard.
Okay.
Yard. Yeah,
okay, one of the yards, and you're holding up a cardboard sign, black Sharpie on there. And one of the ones that really sticks out to me, it said, "Just because we disagree doesn't mean we can't be friends."
Yeah, and that's an homage to Ricky Gervais, because he was the original one who said that. But like
which, by the way, Ricky Gervais.
Wait. Sorry. No. We can disagree and still be friends. That's the original one I did. That was all me, actually.
Okay.
Never mind, Ricky. Fuck you.
Who, Ricky, by the way, is a hilarious British stand-up comedian, for all of you guys who don't know.
Well, Ricky's was, just because you're offended doesn't mean you're right.
Got it.
That was his, which was brilliant. And I couldn't think of any way to paraphrase that better, so I just fucking stole his shit and gave him credit. But the first one happened... I wasn't trying to do anything with it. I wasn't trying to go viral. I wasn't trying to...
Did the sign guy inspire you?
No, I didn't. I saw his stuff after I did mine. People started sending me his shit. So this is what happened. It was early days of COVID. I'm already coaching at that point, charging people for my coaching. And I released I was releasing training videos on my Instagram in the office gym in Lake Wiley where there's no mask requirements because South Carolina never had mandates.
And people flipped on you for not wearing a mask.
I started getting messages. Why are you not wearing a mask in this workout video? Why are you not wearing a mask? Blah, blah, blah. So I said, all right, instead of responding to each of these people individually, I'm going to take my time, craft a video talking about specific studies that cite the efficacy of cloth masks in the context of a gym setting. You know, there's several out of Indonesia, South Korea. I did my fucking research. So I put together this video talking about actually wearing a cloth mask can be a liability in a lot of settings, the gym being one of them because fucking Tommy's adjusting it. Now he's touching the equipment. And if he's a carrier of the virus, that mask is just a virus-soaked sponge. He's touching it. He's touching the equipment. It's a fucking mess. I was like, so I choose to socially distance and wash my hands and be very responsible and shoot these videos without a mask. Not to mention the CDC had already released a statement saying, like, if the mask gives you respiratory issues, there's no reason you should wear it while you work out, yada, yada, yada. And Fauci said you don't need a mask. There was a bunch of shit, all right? So I put this video, I don't even think twice about it. And I was just like, I thought I was doing a good thing because people are asking me. And so I took my time. I spent like an evening researching to do this, right? To put this out for people. The backlash was ridiculous. You know, you're a piece of shit. Like, I can't believe you're not wearing a mask. You're killing grandma. Like, all this stuff. I lost clients, paying clients who, like, blocked me, told me I was a piece of shit, and they can't believe that I'm not wearing a mask and that I'm justifying it using science. All this stuff, dude. And I'm blown away. Like, I know because I listen to a lot of podcasts. I read a lot. I know cancel culture is a thing, but I had never experienced it. And I got fucking canceled, like, by a lot of people. It was ridiculous overnight. And so I'm just like, fuck, man. And I keep thinking to myself, like, just because you guys disagree with me doesn't mean we can't, like, still be cool. And so that was the birth of that sign. And I originally just put it on my Facebook. I was like, just because we disagree, or we can disagree and still be friends. That was the original one. And I just was wearing what I always wear, which is like jorts and a T-shirt and some fucking Adidas slides. Like, I looked ridiculous because it was just an afterthought. And I put it up hoping that some of those clients would see it. A day later, it's been shared 1,000 times. Wow, that's crazy. I've never had anything get shared 1,000 times on Facebook. A day later, it's been shared 100,000 times. I'm like, what the fuck? A few days later, it's been shared like 1 million times. Like, it went completely viral. People are sending me like, hey, my friend in fucking Australia posted your shit. Like, people are sending me these Reddit threads. There's like Reddit threads about it and all this stuff, and like huge debates about whether you can disagree and still be friends, and like all crazy shit. People calling me all kinds of names too. Like, that happened for sure, which is interesting because it's an innocuous message, right? It's like, yeah, we can disagree and still be friends. Like, I don't care if you like pineapple on your pizza, bro. Like, you're still my friend. But, of course, people go to the extreme. They're like, not if you're a racist and you want to kill fucking black people. It's like, well, no shit, asshole. I'm not talking about that. But anyway, that exploded. And so I was like, all right, well, I guess, if I ever have a statement to make, I'll just put it on a fucking sign and hold it up. And so I started doing that. And it just, every single time I did that, it it did well. Then I became kind of known for it. And then you kind of like get to where you're like, I walked into a coffee shop in Indian Land. There's 3 girls in their 20s behind the counter, and they're all like, you're the fucking guy. And I'm like, this is weird.
Yeah.
But yeah, it just, I wasn't trying to be that, but it just happened. So then I was like, all right. And of course, there's like big accounts that share your shit and tag you in it. And so you start getting all these followers.
Was it Big Boy?
Big Boy shared one of them. Yeah, from Outcast.
I
was
saw
like,
that.
dude, I made it. Fuck,
like,
Big Boy?
I saw that. I was like, no fucking way.
It was wild.
I was like, is that a real? I'm like, God, Dave? Like,
dude.
But let me ask you this, because everyone listening to this, I want to put a definition, not a definition, I want to put an analogy to this. Going viral, in my opinion, in social media, and I wanted you to weigh in on this, it's like when you were in college and you hit that winning beer pong cup. And everyone in the room that saw it went nuts, and you and your teammate fucking broed it out, and you're like, I am fucking the Michael Jordan of beer pong. And then, nothing really, nothing ever really, nothing happened. Like, ESPN didn't put it on a top 10. Right. Like, nothing happened. Yeah. And that's the thing, like, going viral, you create an awareness, but like, people hear like Big Boy, oh, did you catch 25,000 new followers? And you're like, no. Like, did you get a deal with Gatorade? And the other was like, no. Like, going viral in this concept, because there's firms that get paid to make viral videos.
Yeah.
I mean, especially when you look at the world, especially after like the world of the Dollar Shave Club video and the funny infomercial these days. The Harmon brothers do a great job at that, and some other firms. I'm curious now, how do you view the concept of, first off, what is the definition of virality, and how do you determine that in like the wake of making content? Is that something you strive for, or is it something that's like, if it happens, great, or is it actually like, you know what, the amount of annoying, like, is it worth, like, talk to me about how you view virality.
Yeah. So to anyone listening who thinks that going viral is the ticket to their success, I'm telling you it's not. And that's what you were hinting at, right? Like, it's a cool thing that happens, but then it just sort of happens, and then what, right? Because we have such a short attention span as a society. If you're not prepared to capitalize on it, and I had no clue. So it's like hitting the beer pong shot, but also not even knowing that you're shooting the ball, right? Like, there's no expectation. So you're like, holy fuck, what is happening?
Well, everyone puts something on social with the expectation of this will appease my audience.
Sure.
Right?
But you don't think your audience is going to be millions of people.
Correct.
And that's what... It's weird because it's this feeling of like it's a picture of me, for God's sakes, with a sign that I wrote, with a message that I came up with, but it very quickly no longer is mine, right? Like, because when it goes viral, everybody's using it. They're fucking photoshopping it, putting different messages on the signs. They're doing all kind, like, it's no longer yours, man. You're out in the cultural milieu, and it's not your picture anymore, dog. It's a meme. It's a weird feeling, right? Like, so, and I'm, of course, because I didn't expect it to go viral, I didn't watermark it or anything. So, like, I didn't capitalize on that the first one was huge. I mean, like, millions of shares, like, it went all over the place. It got shared by all these huge accounts, but nobody knew who the fuck the Mohawk guy with jorts on was, because I didn't watermark it. I didn't, and a lot of times people don't just share your post. They, like, screenshot it or save the picture and then reshare it, So it was a cool experience, but I would say to anyone who's thinking that, oh, the ticket is just to go viral, like, no, it was, I gained followers and all that stuff. And each signpost that I've posted afterward has done well. But nothing like the first one.
Could we say the definition then of virality would be an above average engagement of your content that now creates cultural commentary? Like, if we were to give a definition of virality.
It's a subjective thing. Like, what is virality? I mean, I'm pretty sure that once you get to like millions of shares, that's probably gone viral. But like, there's a lot of gray area. I mean, the true definition of virality, where my science hat, is exponential growth, right? Like, so you're at 10, now you're at 100, now you're at 1,000, now you're at 10,000, and it just keeps going like that. Well, that's viral growth by definition. These days, I don't know. I don't know what the threshold is. Like, is it, because if you're The Rock and you post something, it's going to get shared a few million times anyway, right? So that didn't go viral. It's just...
That's par for the course.
That's par for the course. But if you're me and something gets shared a few million times, for sure that went viral, right? And then it becomes a meme and all this weird shit, and it's popping up still. Like, people will send it to me like, hey, did you know that? I'm like, yeah, I know that's me. And people recognize you, and it's weird. But, like, I don't know. I guess that's a good definition, like something that experiences above average growth and then becomes, to an extent, some part of the culture. Because I think that second part is important, because, like, the cranberry juice guy.
Yeah, on the skateboard, Dogface.
The skateboard, yeah, Dogface. Like, I follow him now. Like, I'm interested in what he's doing now. And that was true virality. It became a part of the culture. Like, Cash Me Outside Girl became a part of the culture. In that regard, I mean, I don't think I definitely didn't become a part of the culture like that, but I experienced viral growth for a while, which was pretty interesting and overwhelming.
Cash Me Outside, she was on Maury Povich, right?
Dr. Phil.
Dr. Phil.
Yeah.
So
now she has a successful rap career.
Correct. Well, if you do anything stupid as fuck on Dr. Phil's show watched by millions, it's technically, you're already there. You're already like in the viral factory. You just got to push the button.
Like the pinnacle of like the stupidest of the stupid, dude.
But people people forget, our age, Jerry Springer. If that shit,
Oh,
like,
man.
that was like, and like, because I've tried to cut, like, I've done video, I've done vlogs and episodes where I'm like, oh my God, this is the perfect scene to cut into Jerry Springer. So I go to rip it off YouTube. The any resemblance to Jerry Springer is so pixelated. It looks like it was
So
shot
bad.
on a
Yeah.
fucking BlackBerry that was
Yeah.
underwater. All right, I want to move on. I want to talk about you giving the definition of virality. You are a very smart guy, and your background, your degree when you were at UC Berkeley, you were about to go get a PhD, correct?
Yeah.
And this was in biochemistry?
Yeah. So I did my undergrad at NC State in biochem and zoology, double major, and minored in genetics. And then I went to UC Berkeley to do a PhD in comparative or in adaptive biochemistry, basically. But I left early with a master's degree because the whole PhD thing wasn't for me.
Yeah. So I remember this is when I had hired one of my first videographers, and I brought him the Brass Tap. Do you remember that kid? He filmed us just drinking beers back in the day.
Yeah.
And so you and me are talking, and back then you were saying, I don't know, dude, when I get out of this bar thing, I want to do something more with supplementation. Like it's the one element of my college education that was really like that I still own all this knowledge. I have this. And you work with Phorm, but your role really isn't necessarily on probably the science side of supplementation.
Correct.
Probably breaking it down for people who don't understand.
Yeah.
But we can definitely go ahead and say you have taken your concept of biology and all that, like the term I called earlier, anabolic chemistry, and I've been able to self-apply it. And I shot you a text before this. I said, listen, so I did steroid. So I did for 16 months. I did a I did a cycle in college, probably about 500 of test ethate and then 40 milligrams of D-ball for about 16 months. I did my PCT. I'd come off cycle, and I had one doctor who knew about it.
You ran D-ball for 16 months?
No. There was off cycles. No, not for 16 months straight. I would have,
Stu. Goodness.
I still have a little bit of the stretch marks here, but at my most, I was 215 pounds, and I had a mohawk, right? And I was an intramural flag football god. Like, I was on the D line, and I would destroy you at 215 pounds. And at my frame, my body does not like that at all. There was just, and that's when I found CrossFit. And some kid, 170, 60 pounds, soaking wet, destroyed me in this strength barbell bias workout that lasted longer than, 9 seconds, 15 seconds. And that's when I had my come to Jesus, and I never picked up gear since then. Since then, I remember my doc telling me, bro, you can't be taking steroids in college is pouring kerosene on a fire that's already flaming.
Yeah.
You're already walking hard on. Your endocrine system, it's going to remember. It's a fucking vengeful bitch, and when you get older, you're going to need to get on TRT, and that's exactly what fucking happened. I used to run 16, 8, 10-hour days, no problem. I could go off 4 hours of sleep, and I was money. I was like, I couldn't sleep. Sex drive was down. I had nothing. So started getting on TRT. So with that, I text you. I said, I definitely want to talk about your knowledge of what you do with anabolic chemistry. I believe TRT will be something that is so common that every male in their mid-30s and above will begin playing with, just like LASIK eye surgery is, or wearing Invisalign, or, like aligners for your fucking teeth.
Yeah. Well, it's pretty much there. I mean, it really is. It's so commonplace now in men of our age. Joe Rogan's open about it. He's on TRT. He takes growth hormone, testosterone, all this stuff. So first off, yes, to Stu's point about if you're a college-age male, teenager, like, don't fuck with the shit. You're already producing testosterone at the highest rate you ever will. If you take exogenous hormones, it's going to suppress your endogenous production, and then you could be fucked for life. Don't fuck with it until later in life. I didn't, and I'm so glad I didn't.
When did you first start taking steroids?
Yeah, so I first started taking steroids when I was, so the very first time, it was in graduate school at Berkeley, and I did a 16-week cycle and came off, did PCT, everything. Didn't touch them again until after Carter was born. So I dabbled in them, I guess you would say, when I was in graduate school. So I was in my mid to late 20s, mid-20s. And then after I came off, and Krista and I knew we wanted to have a child eventually, I didn't want to potentially fuck with that. So I vowed to not use them again until after I had a kid. Then after I had a kid, it was fucking off to the races. And so that's exactly what I did. I waited until I was basically 30 years old until I used them again, and that's when I started. I'm 33 now, so I've been using steroids for about 3 years. And when I say that, I'm also talking about for the majority of that time being on like a TRT dose, you know. So I do what's called blasting and cruising. So cruising is when you're just
Makes it sound so cool, like I'm driving on a California Pacific highway.
Yeah, it's kind of cool. I enjoy it. So during the cruise period, you just take essentially an amount of exogenous hormone that produces the normal level in your body. So that's what you're doing with TRT, right?
Yeah.
You're on like 150, 200 mgs per week of test. 100. Okay.
Yeah.
Even. Yeah. So you're replicating what your body would produce as a healthy male in his peak production of testosterone. And then I go through blast periods where I increase that amount. And
by how much?
It depends on what I'm trying to do. So for me, I'm usually in the range of anywhere from 600 to 900 mgs of test per week, and then maybe something else on top of that.
Is that 1 shot, 2 shots a week?
I do 2 shots a week because I use long esters.
Got it.
It could be a shot every day or a shot every other day if
Sure.
you're using a short ester like a propionate or something like that. I don't like to bother with a bunch of fucking shots, you know, because...
Do you have to switch sites? Cheek, cheek, delt, delt?
Cheek, delt, quad.
Got it.
Yeah. And, you know, people ask me why I do it. I mean, I honestly, I have always been fascinated with human performance, knowing what the human body can do. I'm a big believer in live and let live. You do with your body as you want. I'll do with my body as I want. I choose to use steroids for that reason. And I have the knowledge to do it safely and to monitor my blood work. And, you know, there's a right and a wrong way to do it. And I always, on my social media and stuff, I'm very open about it because the last thing I want is some kid, you know, deciding to do it and then just fucking up their endocrine system. So I always do Q&As about it. And I'm like, look, I'm not a medical doctor, but I will try to guide you in the right direction. If you're going to do this shit with or without my advice, I'd rather give you my advice because I've kind of fucking been there. And I think there's a big taboo surrounding anabolic steroids. And it's funny because I'll talk to guys who are on TRT and they're like, oh, no, I'm not on steroids. I'm like, yeah, you are.
Yeah,
you are.
Well, and then
you're just on less steroids.
You are on steroids, and then people on steroids, again, take out orals out of the scenario, take out whatever, but your NFH or cypionate, whatever, you're increasing the volume of the already produced chemical in your body, the hormone. Interesting enough, so TRT, for everyone, testosterone replacement therapy is what we're talking about. They're literally, so when I decided to get on it, I was like, okay, this is what the doc was telling me about. Like, I rewind back in my head, it was after probably like 9 months of me like, why am I getting so tired? Like 16-hour days, I used to do them in my sleep. Like I would used to fucking vlog and IGTV myself in here at 3 a.m. in the morning, just crushing. I'm like, and now I'm exhausted. And the first thing I did, I called everyone in my ecosystem that I consider like a 1%er. They make crazy money, way more successful than I am. And they're in their 40s. And I'm like, I know you fuckers have the best of the best. Who do you go to? Where is it at? Blah, blah, blah. So, like, you do your research. Currently, right now, what would you say to someone? Because when I was in college, I used it back in the day. It was off the bodybuilding.com forums. It was called Axial Labs. I would purchase from Axial Labs, and I would Western Union the money, and it would be sent to me in the mail, which instantly is federal mail fraud. Like, you cannot do that. That's a no-no. And then I would resell to kids in college. And I'm sitting here, I'm doing this highly illegal thing. I'm doing all this in college because I want to be able to say at the bar that I bitched your fucking offensive line in flag football, and because I was really into the weight room, right? Like, that's why I did it. And now I fast forward, I do it's like, because I need the energy and I need that vigor since I fucked with my fire, I fucked with my endocrine system at such a young age. What do you recommend for people who are looking to get into this at the college age? What is your recommendation for them when they technically don't need to? And then at like our age in the 30s?
Yeah, I mean, always on the record, my recommendation at the college age is to not get into it, just period. I mean, chances are you probably have unfulfilled potential. with your own natural test production and the only time I don't even want to say I would consider it, because still, like, I'm not telling anybody to use exogenous hormones. If you're a competitive bodybuilder who has a serious shot at being something, then consider it. And still, I would go. You can go to a clinic and get prescribed TRT fairly easily. I mean, as long as your levels are not just like astronomical.
Most clinics are going to get right. You're going to leave there with your own vial.
It's kind of like the weed clinics in California before recreational was legal.
You definitely have depression, sir.
Yeah,
exactly. You need this. Yeah,
exactly. But look, I highly encourage, if you're in your mid-20s, man. I mean, just enjoy that shit, because there will come a time when it all comes to a screeching halt and you feel as though you need it, right? Older guys, I mean, do your research. There's tons of TRT clinics. Find a physician who you like, and like Stu was saying, like, maybe talk to guys who have kind of been there, and find out who they're using. Personally, I'm a kind of a unique situation because of my experience and knowledge. So I have a connection who owns and runs a lab that I've worked with for years, that I knew from grad school. It's kind of a one-off. And so I have a very trusted source. But just be careful with finding these sources online, like randomly through forums, and using these like shitty Chinese raw materials and stuff. Like, there's a lot of bullshit out there. So it's tough, because it's like, I want to help, but I also have to be careful, because I'm not going to just outright say you should do steroids.
Correct, because you have no idea where they're going to get it from or how they're going to utilize it.
It's a personal choice. My whole thing is like to at least eliminate that negative stigma surrounding testosterone in general, because we live in a unique time. It's really odd. I've talked about this on the other podcast. If you're a biological female, right, and you have decided that you identify as a male, okay, so you're a trans person, it's almost easier and less public stigma to get testosterone injections, because you're following your heart to be what you truly think you are, even though you're born a biological female. If, however, you're a man, biological man, who was born a man, and you just want to be more of that, be a jacked man, and take more testosterone, that's negatively stigmatized. And it's the exact same thing. You're injecting the exact same compound in that woman who now identifies as a man versus that man who just wants to be more of a man. It's a really odd dynamic today. And a lot of it is with like the trans acceptance community and all of that. But when you take a step back and objectively evaluate it, it's kind of weird. It's like, it's okay for women to inject testosterone, but not men who create it naturally anyway. It's less okay for me to be more of what I already am.
Yeah.
So there's this weird conversation around it these days, and I always will be an advocate of your sovereignty as a human, right? Like, you do what you want with your body. But I highly encourage young guys, be careful. Don't just jump right. Like, you can do so much with the physiological state of your 25-year-old body, and enjoy that shit, because it's not going to last forever. And then when the time comes, go see a physician, and you can start taking exogenous means from the outside hormones. And I'm probably going to be, I know I will be on TRT for the rest of my life. So it's a very serious thing.
Once you're on it, there's really no going off of it at that point with TRT.
It's hard
That's
to
why
recover.
Insurance won't cover it.
Right. And hopefully one day it will, maybe with an age threshold or something. But
because it's not expensive. People think it's expensive.
No, it's not bad.
It's not expensive at all. If you have contacts, if you pay for contacts monthly, it's probably relative.
Yeah. But, and that's a good point. When you take testosterone injections, you suppress your own production of it. Even if your T was low to begin with, you've now taken it to zero. Your testicles will shrink in size a little bit unless you take there's other compounds, HCG, and stuff, but you will potentially shut off your own production of testosterone forever. So you need to take that into consideration and very seriously think about that.
Yeah, and if you go to a clinic, the nice thing is they're going to give you enough. What everyone doesn't realize is your body's always searching for equilibrium. So you increase your testosterone, your body's like, well, let's get that estrogen up there. Yeah. And then you drop off your testosterone, and that's where we get gyno. And for those guys, that's aka bitch tits. And that's where you see the big dude crying in the fucking corner kind of scenario. So you need to be able to keep all of this in line. It's best to do it with the oversight of an actual physician, someone, not a bodybuilding.com forum or anything like that. But yeah, it's just an interesting topic. It's one that I think as time goes on, more people are going to get LASIK. More people are going to wear aligners for their teeth post, teenage years. More people are going to fuck with peptides or TRT. And this is just going to all be, as more science is tested, some people, you'll make the decision to do it, but at least the information's out there.
Yeah, exactly. And I'm always like, I will never tell you what to do or not to do with your body. But I think that legislating it to where you can't do, I think that's ridiculous. I think that we're adults and we should be treated as such. And if you want to inject testosterone to be a functioning male, to have more energy, or if you want to be a juggernaut in the gym and take double that, you should be able to, man. And I think we are trending towards that. I mean, there's definitely other countries the UK and Australia, I believe, are both it's legal, completely legal, just, steroids in general. And so, my hope is that we're open-minded enough as a society to where we get there, because, all these things like roid rage that you hear about, I mean, it's largely just myth. What steroids do, they make you more of what you already are. All right. So if you're an asshole, they make you more of an asshole. If you're not, if you're just an even-keeled guy who, is pretty laid back, that's what you're going to be. So the Latimer stereotype
from the program.
From the program.
Oh, such a good movie.
I know guys on obscene amounts of gear who are not like that. It's just a stereotype that's pushed by people who don't know what they're talking about.
Yeah, if you're slightly emotionally unstable, same thing. Let's talk about Lexapro. Lexapro recreates a chemical in your brain that otherwise is suppressed currently, right? So if you're depressed, things like that, you don't create enough of X chemical.
Yeah.
Something like Lexapro will help raise that amount of chemical to balance you the fuck out. If you are on any kind of anabolic and you have a predisposition to losing your temper, then it will just be like that. It'll be like pouring fire on a flame. That's all it essentially is. If you're a normal motherfucker, in my college years, I never had an episode of roid rage whatsoever. I got into a fight one time in whatever, that 16-month period, and that was it. And it was I walked away from was that roid rage? I'm like, no, that guy just really was a dickhead and deserved to get punched in the face. That's it.
That's it. And I mean, there's different compounds that do affect you to different degrees. Like you were talking about in the Seth episode, we were talking about Trent.
Yeah.
That's a different animal. All right. I'm talking about just testosterone right now. There are some compounds that do mess with you psychologically, not necessarily creating roid rage, but they just amplify who you are to a stronger degree. So with any given steroid, there's an anabolic and an androgenic ratio. There's an anabolic to androgenic ratio. All right. So testosterone is 1-to-1. It's the grandfather molecule. That's the standard. There's some that are heavily androgenic and not very anabolic. There's some that are heavily anabolic and not very androgenic. Those tend to be compounds that females use because you don't want something that's androgenic. It's going to cause virilization or dick clit, in a deep voice. But compounds that are heavily androgenic are still prevalent because guys who are in powerlifting or strongman, they want that aggression when it's game time, right? When it's time to fucking go, stuff like Anadrol. Trent is pretty much big on both. It's like that. If there ever was anything close to a magic pill, it's that. And I'm not telling anybody to fucking take Trent. It's not a pill. It's injectable. It was developed to maintain the muscle mass on cattle when in transit. So it was put into a pellet. They would inject it into the cattle. It's slowly released in their system. They wouldn't eat for days, but they would maintain their muscle mass. It's It's a pretty phenomenal compound. Also has tons of side effects. So if you're new, if you're thinking about steroids, do not take Trenbolone. It will cause fucking what's where you can't sleep? What's the word called?
Insomnia.
Insomnia. I was gonna say amnesia. Jeez, need another beer. It'll cause insomnia. It'll cause heartburn. It'll cause fucking. It'll amplify your aggression. It'll amplify like your libido to an obscene level where it's not good. Like it's just one of these things that is great. And I will never say it's not great. It's one of my favorite compounds, but you have to be very mindful of the side effects, and you have to be prepared to manage them.
What do you want currently?
So, just testosterone.
Yep.
Just cruise.
Yep.
Yeah. It's
what
what I'm on
cruise
most of the time. I cruise at 250. So
a week.
Yeah. So a little bit higher than you.
Yeah, you're 2.5 times me.
Yeah. That's self-prescribed. I've never used a physician. I've always done my own. Again, I don't encourage that at all. I have a master's degree in physiology, but seriously consider it if you're in your mid 30s.
I mean, you get hit with it on Instagram. Like, there's testosterone testing kits. They don't.
Oh yeah.
I mean, they're just there to tell you, hey, you're low. But
and
companies
it's
like
funny how they try to glamorize it and talk about your
like
tea
Roman
and stuff. It's
like,
dude, come on.
Yeah, there's companies like Roman
Steroids.
that'll send you, testosterone supplements and essentially just kind of pushing you down that path. But again, I've always knew like, well, I'll go that route whenever I crash, and I waited as long as I could for the effects to really make me be like, all right, fuckface, here's you got to pay the piper now for doing that when you were in your 20s in college, and but I was telling a buddy, I've already referred a couple other friends to the same clinic here in Charlotte. I was like, listen, I've felt better. I go, so like it's great. It's right by my kid's school, and I go there and they'll just give me a shot because I didn't want anything at the house.
Drop the kid off, get a shot.
Yeah, well, I didn't want anything at the house. I didn't want any syringes.
Yeah.
I didn't want anything there.
Well,
My kid is in you get this. My kid is in everything, dude.
I keep everything high up, locked up, away.
Yeah.
One thing I do want to mention before we move on from this topic, it's important, and especially with young guys, I do encounter this. Oral steroids are far more dangerous for you than injectable steroids. If you want to use steroids, you need to nut the fuck up and inject yourself. Don't fuck with these orals that are going to destroy your liver. Like, I'm telling you, don't be a pussy. Inject if you're going to use steroids, because the orals are so much more toxic and so much worse for you. It's not even a comparison. And a lot of guys are like, oh, I can just take this pill and get big. It's like, no, dude, man, listen to me, please.
So I was on test, D-ball, and then I started, and this is horrible. If anyone understands the hepatotoxicity for your liver, I was on Accutane simultaneously. So my liver and drinking, I was going to say. I was on spring break every day. I was in college.
Yeah.
Using your body is that kind of a very shitty petri dish. It was just the absolute. I mean, nothing bad happened. Never ended up in the hot. There was anything that I got blood work done regularly. That was actually half the reason I got on the Accutane. Accutane is a prescription for people with really bad acne, and I didn't even have it that bad. But I was like, well, if I do this, not only will it combat one of the side effects, but number two, they have to do blood work on you every month.
Yeah.
When you take that, so I was like, cool.
Perfect.
I'm gonna get my blood work taken care of. So I like double dipped in that, and the doctor would always like, hey, how's everything else looking over there? And dude, it's amazing how much dumb shit you can do to your body and not die, and then you look down to answer a text message one time and it's lights out because a fucking F-150 hit you head on.
Yeah, dude, it is. And for as many of those of us, and look, I've done my fair share of petri dish fucking
stupid shit
in my body. Trust me, I think about it and it just gives me the chills. Like, why the fuck did I do that? But like, at the same time, you hear about guys who try something for the first time and fucking die. So like, just be careful, man. And with the orals versus injectables, like, I know it's probably tempting to just take a pill, but I'm telling you, it's so much more toxic for your body. And you're not going to get lasting gains from them. Look, if you want gyno and fucking acne and to bloat up a lot and gain a little bit of weight and then lose it again, yeah, use some oral steroids. But like, if you want to take this seriously, you need to just get over the fact that you're going to have to inject yourself.
My interest, so I had 2 majors. I was exercise physiology and sociology, and my senior thesis had to involve both majors. That's how my liberal arts school worked, and so a bunch of them are still up there. So Juiced, Steroid Nation, Game of Shadows. So I wrote my senior thesis was the sociological implication of performance-enhancing drugs in sports. And because I grew up watching Sammy Sosa and McGuire, and I read Canseco's book, and I was so into human performance, and that's when I found CrossFit. I was like, and like all these things just kind of like blended together, and so that's what I did my senior thesis on. And I wish I still had that paper somewhere, but it's incredible to see now, because you see guys get popped left and right for this. More people get popped now for the silly shit than you do anything else.
Yeah, and I was gonna get your take on this. Like, what do you think? Because I'm out of touch with the landscape of like CrossFit.
Yeah.
You think those guys are
some 100%? Some of the females 100%.
I heard Matt Frazier recently on Joe Rogan talking about different guys getting popped and stuff like that, and how often they get tested.
Yeah, no, there's definitely. I mean, anytime you put money into anything, people are gonna. Yeah, they're gonna bust ass to win.
Yeah,
it's just, and I get it, and it's you run the risk. It's like, okay, if I don't take this, definitely not winning. If I take this and I get tested, I'm not winning. But if I take this and I don't get tested, or I can time up my cycle or whatever it is, then I can win. I think it's just, I think it's a matter of that. But I mean,
So what do you think? Do you think it should be? Do you think they should be allowed just across the board?
I think for something as diverse as CrossFit, something as diverse as CrossFit to fucking take test or a standard, like your regular anabolic steroid.
It can be a detriment in many ways.
It could be, but at the same time, the breadth and depth of what you have to do in a sport like CrossFit, in even in football and stuff like that, like there's so many other variables
besides just muscular size.
Correct. Just the amount of weight, the amount of muscle on your skeleton. That has to happen. There's a skill set. Yeah. Like nobody would care if I don't know what the Professional Pool Association of America is, whatever. But if a professional pool player or bowler or dart thrower or cornhole player was on steroids, nobody would care because they don't believe it gives them a leg up in the sport. True. Tiger Woods got corrective eye surgery in like 2003 or 4, and it was a huge controversy. Like, he can see the green better. Yeah. Like it's just how people perceive
it's applicable to your sport.
Correct. And if you don't do the sport or play the sport, or understand the sport, you might think, oh, steroids, and instantly in your head you categorize steroids as, oh, help. Cheater. It just makes you better, makes you a faster, stronger, better human. Mark Bell's documentary, Stronger, Bigger, Stronger, Faster.
Yeah, Chris Bell. His
brother. Chris Bell, who passed. But
no, that was that was 3 Chris is the documentary guy. The other one, the oldest one, is the one who passed, and then Mark is the youngest.
Mark, was it a Mike? Which one died? One of them died.
One of them died. I can't remember his name. Chris and Mark are alive.
Yeah.
Chris does documentaries. Mark is the fucking meathead millionaire. Super training gym slingshot guy.
Yeah. But that's my feeling is on it. I think as it becomes less taboo, things will happen. I mean, LASIK eye surgery, it wasn't that it was taboo to that degree. It was super sketch. Like people like LASIK eye, like, so you're gonna put someone's gonna laser your fucking eyeball and make your eye, like, it was the best $5,000 I ever spent back in 2014 was LASIK eye surgery. The best money I've ever spent. So I think as more of this comes online and more people adopt it successfully and without negative side effects, actions, things like that, I think it'll become more acceptable. But I would definitely say people in any sport, CrossFit included, are going to do anything they can to win if there's money on the line.
Yeah, it's interesting, the subjectivity of what's performance enhancing too, right? Like, so you take Tiger Woods in that context, and it's probably more beneficial. It's more performance enhancing for him to get LASIK eye surgery than to take testosterone injections.
Yeah.
But if people found out he was injecting steroids, that's what they would say. Like, he's evil, he's a cheater. Meanwhile, he's doing this other thing that helps him far more. And I know there was some controversy over it, but still, it's probably not as negatively stigmatized as steroids. People hear steroids and they're like, oh my God. But, you look at like, shit, man. Like, where do you draw the line? Is caffeine performance enhancing? Certainly is for me. I drink caffeine and I'm on my shit way better than
I used to do ECA stacks like crazy.
Oh,
I would
dude, give me that Broncaid and fucking
I would be at the
No-Dose.
counter with my ID getting Broncaid, and I would run my ECA stack for everyone. That's ephedrine, caffeine, and aspirin.
Oh,
and
beautiful.
ephedrine opens up, it allows you to process a little more oxygen. The caffeine, the aspirin dilates, allows the caffeine to get into your blood vessels. And it was this it's this amazing ECA stack.
I still do.
You still do ECA?
Yeah, off and on. So, but it's funny because I'll go to the counter in the pharmacy. They know exactly what the fuck I want Broncaid, right? They're like, "Oh, you got some breathing issues?"
Yeah. You also pick up your syringes there, saying that like, let me get a few of those.
I buy those
online
from medical supply online.
There we go. Yeah.
You don't want to get it all there. Like, hey, I need some syringes and some Broncaid. And some
Where are your metal?
Guys got insulin?
Where are your metal spoons?
Yeah,
dude. So I was an EMT in college. I was a volunteer fireman in EMT, and I had one of the biggest juice heads at the gym try to pay me to steal Lasix off the EMT truck so he could lean out for a cut.
Yeah.
And I was like, bro, I'm not stealing Lasix from the volunteer fire department.
Yeah, seriously.
It was just, it was one of those things. But, going back to Tiger Woods, you know what his best performance-enhancing drug was? Fucking a ton of chicks. That's when he was at his peak. Have you seen the documentary?
I have not.
The Tiger Woods documentary is
me.
fucking incredible, dude. It's fucking incredible. He was at his peak when he was banging every stripper escort in every city. It was insane.
Well, it's funny because you hear that anecdote from a lot of coaches where they're like, it's game day, like don't fuck. Or don't fuck the day before. It's gonna Mike Tyson was like, I fucked everything that walked, and it made me better. It's like the same thing with
That's
Tiger
so
Woods.
funny.
Yeah. I mean, it's what being a man is. Like, how is that not going to be good for you?
Yeah,
right?
no, it's but you need to see that documentary. Let me I want to ask you this, a couple more questions in here. Where you're standing now with the birth of your podcast and it's where you're at going with it. Where would you like to see it this time? Quarter 2 of 2022. What do you want to have happen with your podcast?
God, that's a good question because that time frame is so short.
Is it awareness first, monetization second, or is it? What do you want to do with it? Is it network first, monetization? I think for most of us, we're going to say monetization second, just by default, because you don't go into podcasting to make money.
Definitely not. It's a nice thing if it happens, but for me, it's awareness and networking, just being able to get in front. So in a year from now, I would love to see the podcast in a position to where it's developed such a name for itself to where I don't have much problem getting in front of most of the guests I want to get in front of.
Okay. That's actually a great answer.
That's it.
I think it's a perfect answer.
And like, I know in a year it's not going to be Joe Rogan or whatever. Like, I just want to be able to talk to the interesting people that I want to talk to and to have enough cred by that point for them to say, oh, you're with Mind of Man? Yeah, absolutely. Let me see what I've got in my calendar, for next month. And I would be ecstatic.
Yeah. I think it's one of those things where like guys who do hobbies are generally really expensive, hunting, whatever. And initially they're always like, I just want to be able to pay for my hobby.
Yeah.
Like kind of scenario.
For sure.
I just want to pay for my hobby. I've been getting text messages over here. They're about to we're about to get blasted out of here with the evening class. I got one. Yeah, I got one. That would be a vlog.
After 6 beers,
Dave
participates.
Dave does cardio for the first time. Dave? Are you doing cardio regularly?
No.
That's a negative. It's your pause there. No. You should do. You'd be like, guys, I need to start doing cardio, so I'm going to do walks with Dave. And you just do that. Mark Bell, like what he does, he just walks and talks at his phone.
10-minute walks.
And everyone's like, man, that's such a great idea because no one's bothering him. Like, no, he does it for cardio, otherwise he'll fucking die.
I mean, I do. Well, yeah. I mean, I lift faster and I have sex.
And you have sex, and that's the two things. Okay,
sex wrecks you when you're this size, bro. It's so hard.
If you were wearing a Whoop, it's like, are you dead?
Yeah, it's like, dude, don't work out for a week.
Your strain is at 60. All right, last question I want to ask you. Who is, as you work on building the Mind of Man podcast, who would be if it was your last episode you could ever record, it would be this person and you could never record again?
As a guest?
Yes. So you get one guest. You can have anybody you want, but then when it's over with, it's the last episode you ever record.
Oh, Jesus Christ.
Dead or alive?
Not Jesus Christ. I was just saying Jesus Christ.
That might not
Actually,
be bad.
shit, man.
That might be good,
That might not
dude.
be a bad one.
That'd be a one of one.
Yeah. Fuck, man. Who's had Jesus Christ on their
podcast? Literally. That would be.
Like, I have so many questions. Actually, yeah, sure. Let's do Jesus Christ. I got a lot of questions for that guy.
It'd be a one of one.
I want to know what he looked like.
There's a lot of people that would tune into that.
Yeah.
That would go viral.
I mean, come on.
That would be viral.
Especially if they couldn't do any other podcast.
Yeah.
Like I'm the guy who had Jesus Christ on my
and
podcast.
constantly be like, Jesus Christ, dude, stop bleeding all over my fucking floor. Like, put some bandages on those stupid fucking feet.
Oh man, yeah. I guess that's as good as any. But honestly, if I weren't able to do Jesus Christ, all right, for me, in this, okay, no language barrier, right? Like, no, even if they spoke a different language, we'd still be able to.
Yeah.
Man, I'd be really interested in digging into the mind of Adolf Hitler.
That's impressive.
Because to me, people who are so despicably evil, like I want to know how, because I am a human, right? Like I'm surrounded by humans. I want to know how a human can get to that point. And I would like, because it terrifies me that guy's the same species I am. Right? And I want to know what the fuck got you there. You know, so I think that would be an interesting one too.
He like has
Adolf Hitler or Jesus Christ.
He gives you an anecdote. He tells you about how he get the shit kicked out of him by Jewish kids all through grade school.
Right.
Just a horrible.
That's all it was.
They were pissing on his face in the locker room and fucking nut punching him and shaving his fucking eyebrows.
I don't see Jewish kids doing that, man.
And then he's just like, you know what? One of these days, I'm gonna show all you motherfuckers.
Like,
I'm gonna show 6 million of you motherfuckers.
But really though, like guys who like are despicably evil, who are the outliers in that regard of our species, it always gives me pause just to think that someone could be like Genghis Khan, like these guys who it's just like, wow, we're the same thing. You're a human too. How the fuck did you do that? Why did you do that, bro? Like I want to know, because I can't even fathom that, you know. So that kind of stuff interests me too.
I love
and if not him, maybe Da Vinci or Einstein or something.
Jesus, Hitler, maybe Einstein.
We've had a lot of interesting people.
100%.
Yeah.
Ladies and gentlemen, Dave Hurt, my man. Thank you so much.
It was a pleasure, man. Thank you, brother.
Thank you, sir.
Absolutely.